Nice.
Yeah, looks like everything's working. So, hey, welcome, Kevin, to Blossom Media Studio, the Real Abhinav podcast. Everybody, thank you for joining if you are on this beautiful Sunday morning. So today on the show, we have a good friend that we recently just met last week, who is a co-founder of this beautiful gaming company. It's called Fiveamp. Check them out, fiveamp.com. They have 3 awesome games right now, but more in the works. We're here going to have a conversation with the founder of this and one of the co-founders. And Kevin, thank you so much for being here, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And you're from Texas.
Yeah, I tell you what.
I'll tell you what. So what part of Texas are you from, man?
From San Antonio.
San Antonio.
I think I guess I'm not born in Texas, but born in Oklahoma. My dad was in the military.
Nice.
And then we settled in Texas. San Antonio,
Texas. Nice, man. I've been to Texas a few times now. I've been to Houston, been to Dallas a few times,
Nice.
Arlington. Good stuff. Texas is good. A lot of space, a lot of land. It's very wide out there.
Definitely. And like a lot of people a lot of people have said like, oh, Texas being like, there's so many like rural areas in the middle of nowhere, but at the same time, it's very friendly people.
Oh,
too.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
So.
That's true. So what or is this the first time you've been in San Diego or?
I've been here for a couple times, but I think the first time I've been here for a long time. Like it's been about like almost a week and a half.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And so when we met, you were telling me that the company Fiveamp is having a business sort of, company-wide coding retreat type of thing, right? Is that fair to say?
Yeah. We call it like a hack week. And
okay.
So we kind of hack on just a new project. And it's really good like exercise because we're all together and we're all like, we just kind of start from scratch and we're like, hey.
So it's like a new idea.
Exactly.
Whatever you want to do, you have like a week to do it.
And it might not make sense that we won't be releasing it or we won't be actually working on it. But at the same time, like it's more like, hey, this is great teamwork. This is a good exercise.
Yeah.
It's a good for our skills type of thing. So
now tell me, Fiveamp, how long has it been around now?
It's been around for about 4 or 5 years.
That's really cool, man. So you've been doing this full time now for 4.5 years.
I think full time has been about 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
Got you. And what were you doing before then?
So before we were at other companies, like a couple of companies is Gearbox and Facebook. But the thing that kind of started it all was that like it was me and the other co-founder. His name is Chris, and we were working jobs, and then
as engineers, I think you said.
Yep, we're electrical engineering by trade, but we're kind of got more into software engineer positions.
Is that, do you think, because just the demand?
I believe so. I also found out that like when I got out, I was so into hardware, and I saw so many of these hardware companies automating all their circuit designs via software.
Right.
So it's like, oh, software is the future, and a lot of hardware companies are going more towards software.
Isn't it because I think also like hardware that we have today is really good, and we just have to now figure out how to optimize it more and more, and I think that's what software is doing, because one small change of hardware can add a lot more variability to how these components function. So there's like so much tweaking you can do, but that tweaking really comes from software.
Totally. And like one example is that like you look at Xbox 360. I'm not sure if this also applies to Xbox One.
Yeah.
But if you look at Xbox 360, they're selling the console, the hardware at a loss.
Really?
To get more and more people onto their platform.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Because if you think about the number one, like one of the revenue things that made them a lot of money was Xbox Live subscriptions.
Right, because companies are moving more and more towards subscriptions. And that was actually one of my questions, but I don't want to derail too quickly here.
Sure.
So you started this company 3.5 years ago, or 4.5 years ago, but 3.5 years ago full time. You and your co-founder, Chris, you guys were working at other companies, realized that, hey, you have this urge. Where did the gaming stuff where did that come in?
Yeah, it was more of like we saw ourselves that we weren't really that happy. We weren't fulfilled with our jobs back then.
Do you remember specifically like what those feelings were about, or
whenever you wake up and you're like, I really don't want to go out of bed, or like
why am I doing this?
So hard to get out of bed. And
what's the meaning of all this?
Exactly. And if you're spending something that, your work is the majority of your time during the week, right?
Very true.
And if you're going to have this feeling every single day, that's not really good quality of life, right?
Right.
And we also saw like there's kind of like a a group of people at work that were also our age, and they would always throw parties every weekend, do different events, and so we were kind of drinking every weekend, and nights and weekends, things like that.
Yeah.
And we were like, "What are we doing?
Why are we partying?
Exactly.
What are we celebrating?"
Exactly.
I feel like everybody at some point in their life, and I went through something very similar myself, and a large part of the manifestation of the studio is because of that. It's like I want to do things that I want to do. Like I understand that there's a money concept to life, that you need that, but I also firmly believe that fulfillment, as you mentioned, is like super important and key. But it's also like a weird place to kind of think where you can you can look for fulfillment, but you also have to consider like fulfillment yourself, but also of other people that are gonna be affected by your decisions.
Yeah.
Because you can't just go and like do something completely for yourself if you have a family to look after, a wife or kids or whatever. So it's like you were probably kind of understanding that where does this lead me if I keep doing this 10 years, 15 years down the line, if I keep doing this kind of work, where am I going to be? What kind of person am I going to be, and what is it that I want to be doing, right? So that's really good, man.
And I think also, like, you're totally right. You hit it spot on with the whole, like, if we had responsibilities or if we had a kid to take care of, we probably wouldn't have, kind of done our own thing or ventured in our own direction, right?
Yeah, get some water.
Yeah.
I'm going to give me a water break too.
But we saw it as like, hey, we're still young. Why, celebrate every weekend?
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and let's make our own thing, right? We wanted to make our mobile app. We were both like kind of in it. And I've heard a lot of, from a lot of people that says like, once you meet that other co-founder, it's really hard to meet a co-founder. And they said that like, you need somebody to be there with you to push you.
It's like an accountability, teammate, everything.
Totally.
Right?
It's so hard. Like, your studio here is like very, very impressive because it's like that hustle, that drive, the individual drive. And that's very tough, like, especially for one person. And that's why and there's other people.
That's so true, man. That's a very good point that you just touched on, because me trying to do this by myself, I was having a lot of anxiety after I bought all this stuff because I didn't know how any of this stuff worked together. And how do you connect cameras to make them like stream like this? It was just, everything was brand new, and I was definitely panicking a lot. So you're absolutely right. You need somebody. That's true.
And we both keep each other grounded. But one thing we wanted to do is that we wanted, like, at the time, we wanted to get out of that company, and we wanted to go work at other places like Microsoft or Google or Facebook, right? Because like that was kind of like the hip thing to do, right? And it was very challenging. And so many people, like I looked at Microsoft, and like a lot of people were having fun. They were being fulfilled. And we were like, all right, how do we get into these places? And during the interview process, they would always ask us like, okay, what items have you shipped? What items are there out in the public that have your name on them?
Right.
And a lot of the stuff we were doing, it wasn't really public. So we couldn't really like show them like, oh, hey,
I've done this at Google, or I've done this at Facebook. So it's like, there's no way of anybody knowing. You're just another cog.
Exactly. So on the side, we're like, you know what? Let's go ahead and make our own mobile app, right? And we kind of were brainstorming. We came with a couple of ideas. And then eventually it came down to, working on a game. And that game...
what other ideas were rejected? Do you recall?
Yeah, one of them was, it was kind of like... at the time, there's this gaming convention, and we were volunteers. And part of this gaming convention, like, we had to set up all the computers with games, and there's like 400 of them.
Right.
So what's the quickest way to get a game on there? It's like right now, when we were doing it, and there's software out there that helps with that. But what we were doing is that we were literally going to every single computer and plugging in, flash drive. And it wasn't scalable, right? So I was like, hey, what if we made a mobile app that like allows you to be all like, install this game on your phone.
Exactly. Yes.
However, we noticed that quickly that was very niche. That's only like conventions now, right? We're only marketing this application for conventions.
Right.
And we kind of got tired of working on it, and we were like, you know what? Let's table this for now. And then so the next one after that, and we've had like a lot of brainstorm ideas. But the next one was we wanted to do something with kind of your phone's accelerometer, right?
Can you explain to the people that don't know what an accelerometer is?
Totally. So the accelerometer in the phone is that with the gyroscope. So there are two sensors inside your phone, and they kind of track the movement of your phone.
The relative positioning.
Yep.
So basically, think of it like we have a center of balance in our gut that tells us when we're like about to fall over. I think there's also something in our ear. There's a fluid inside of your ear that based on its level, your body can basically distinguish if you're, about to fall and like take countermeasures and things like that. So your cell phone, has gyroscopes and accelerometers to fix on where the phone is relatively positioned. So like if you're holding your phone this way versus you're holding your phone this way, how would it know the difference? So they have to have sensors to tell it to do that.
Yep.
Got you.
And at the time, there was this app that kind of, the way that it worked is that it would detect how high the phone was. Or like if you threw it in the air.
Holy shit. How?
With the accelerometers, because...
That's so trippy.
Yeah. And this app was like, hey, how high of points can you get?
By throwing your phone?
Yep.
Oh my God, that sounds like a terrible idea. Just sign up a screen repair company on this part of your subscription.
No, Apple definitely, they acted really quickly and they took it down because they're like, hey.
Can't be having people throwing their own phones.
Yeah, it's like Nintendo Wii, right? With the whole motion controls.
Yeah. That's funny that you bring that up because I remember playing Wii back in the day, and it used to be this controller you're supposed to wrap it around your wrist, but of course most people wouldn't do that, and then you're doing like these movements and these movements. And then the one of them you just let go of the damn thing and it hits the TV.
Totally.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, they were kind of trying to pin Nintendo about that, right?
Yeah. Excuse me. It's okay. We're here for a while. No rush.
In the mornings, I kind of get this. It's like post-nasal drip.
Yeah.
But
I usually wake up with like a stuffy nose and stuff in the morning, and like it takes me a while to start breathing normal.
And I think allergies kind of like magnify it. But
yeah. No, it's all good, man. Plus, you're in California. You're a Texan. You don't really know how to hang out here.
No.
I'm just kidding.
I tell you what.
That's
but
funny.
no, so the whole accelerometer, right? We wanted to do something with that the sensor.
So you got me going on. It's like the sneeze effect or the yawn effect.
Oh no, what have I started?
Yeah.
But something that was big back then, and it still is right now, is Minecraft.
Minecraft, yes.
Minecraft is huge. It's like it's still like consistently in the top purchase mobile games in mobile.
I thought Minecraft was mostly PC. It's now mobile too?
Yep.
Wow. This shows you how disconnected I am from the gaming world.
And Microsoft purchased them a few years ago.
Yeah, I remember I had some friends back in the day who would spend like an inordinate amount of time on Minecraft building out these massive castles and very elaborate structures with like things, and then they would show it to you and you're like, this is pixelated shit garbage. What is this? You wasting your energy in doing this? But at the same time, I was not fully understanding of what's taking place there. I mean, today I think seeing the rise and how many people are playing games, it's astounding. You're not even like considering if it's too easy to say that games are like childish or stupid. Yet there's a lot more complexity to video games and our behaviors with how we interact with video games and what that means to like our society, which I would love to get into with you in a little bit later.
Yep.
But just to wrap up this part of it, because I do want to get how this all started, and once this, and then we'll go into where we are today.
Sure. So like with the whole accelerometer in Minecraft, we wanted to, hey, would it be cool if we had a pickaxe on your phone and every time you swung it, it would make a little sound like clink.
Oh, yeah.
So we started like going down that idea, and we were like, "Oh, this is cool! Shake your phone and get a little ding,
right.
ding noise." And then we were like, "What if we, kind of combine this with this game? It's called Cookie Clicker. Have you heard about
Cookie Clicker? Eh? No, I haven't. Let's look it up.
And this is really cool too. If you can actually click on the first link, and this is gonna be a hoot. Do you play idle games?
Dude, I don't play very many games anymore, but I've played a ton of games when I was a little kid. So click on this cookie.
So you click on it, you got one cookie.
Oh, are you serious? I'm just getting cookies out here?
You got 5 cookies, 6 cookies.
Oh my God. That's all this is?
Yep. And
That's
then,
all this is.
But now you can go ahead and purchase the things on the far right. They cost cookies, but now you get a cursor.
Oh my gosh.
And it attacks once every 10 seconds.
Wow, I got a lot of cookies. Anybody want to eat some cookies? Because I'm gonna get fat, man.
And
I got 18.
Yeah, you could get another cursor too. So now
I can do double cooking.
Yeah, so now if you look at your cookies per second,
They're doubling.
yeah, it's 0.2 per second. So if you just not tap anymore, so now your cookies are automatically going up, right? 56, 57.
What?
So it's like once every 5 seconds, and you can get more cookies. So the whole goal of this game is that you just want to make that number grow bigger, right?
Right. It's an incrementer. What a silly concept.
Exactly.
But yeah.
So we really liked this game, and Minecraft was big, and we were thinking how about we just kind of combine these two games together, and that's when Pickcrafter came out.
Pickcrafter. Let's look at that one. So if we go, not to Coffee Craze, but if we go down here, we got Pickcrafter, one of the games that is founded by Fiveamp, the development company. Let's go to the website here. Ooh, what is this?
I believe it's our trailer.
I want to watch it.
Sure.
Oh, that's cool.
We had a lot more systems.
Right.
And if you look at it, the pickaxes, the whole theme is very critical, very core to the game.
Oh, cool. So the whole concept of Pickcrafter is similar to that cookie concept where it's, look, it shows all my Jordan Peterson.
where you tap and you just want to get the number bigger. So
amazing.
So if you look at the screenshots too, we have instead of cookies per second, we have picks. So picks per second.
Gotcha. So the more picks that you get, then you can have a better rate of axing through.
Yep.
The objects. Very cool. So how many users do you guys have, or how does this work? Is it user based, or is it download based, or once a person? I've always been curious about this. Once a person downloads a game or an app, does the development company have metrics, or does data get sent to you guys about what's being done to those games in terms of I'm sure it's not personal data, but it's more the game sensitive data about score and whatever level they're doing and whatever things like that.
Yeah, there's so we do use a couple of analytics, we use Facebook analytics, and we log all the tutorial events.
Right.
So it's kind of whenever a person first installs the game, how far are they getting? Are they leaving because are they leaving a little bit too early? Why are they leaving?
Drop off rate to figure out, okay, so customer downloaded a game, they started playing it, and then there's just a drop off rate. Well, why did this stop here?
Yep.
And why are they all of a sudden no longer interested to figure out what is going on at that part of the game, maybe?
Yep. And it's is the game too hard? Is it too easy? Is it not,
engaging enough? Whatever could it be?
Yeah. So we use that, and every single time that they download it, we see these events, and we call. So it's free to download too.
Right.
So
check it out, everybody. It's free to download. I'm definitely going to download them.
But that's been going strong for the last almost 5 years in August.
Got you.
So we're very we're very lucky to have it. It's been the number one supporter of the company. So
since the game has lineage from Minecraft, right? Have you noticed that it's generally the people who would be also interested in Minecraft who would want to play this type of game?
Yes.
And how do you find that kind of stuff out? Is there a way to target those folks, in terms of or have you run Instagram ads that way, maybe to find people that are Minecraft players already to show them, hey, check out this new game?
Yeah. We do run Instagram ads, Facebook ads, but with this, so kind of the one catch-22s with this type of game is that it's very in-depth. We added a lot of features, and a lot of idle games are just very fun in general. And however, since it has the Minecraft inspiration theme to it, a lot of hardcore Minecraft fans, they see the game and they look at it and they're like, wait a second, they're not Minecraft. And they kind of perceive us as the enemy. And they're all like, this isn't Minecraft at all.
You guys are stealing Minecraft or whatever.
Yep. So a lot of people that come to our Google Play listing, we have a low conversion rate. and that's our theory on why they're not installing. But the people who do install, they're there for the long run,
Right.
because they love the game. It's like, hey, just get in, just give the game a shot, just see how.
Almost
it goes.
seems like you should advertise some gameplay, so people, once they see the game in action, they'll be like, "Whoa, what is this? I want to check this out." Or customer testimonials. Perhaps you could find people to talk about what they've found.
That's a good idea.
Because I think the best way for somebody to see, and we see this. I mean, look YouTube reviews. People doing product reviews, people doing like unboxing.
Yep.
I mean, those videos get tremendous amounts of views because people just want to know.
Yep.
And then once they see it and they hear somebody normal or whatever, talking about it, rather than like, I think that's a very good way to kind of show, hey, this is a cool thing. Like, we're not trying to like, sell you much of anything really here. We're just trying to get you to enjoy a game that you might like,
Yep.
Very cool.
It's also very tough because like when you mention like, oh, show the gameplay. Well, the core game mechanic is tapping.
Oh yeah.
So it's not very interesting, for face value. But
Fair enough.
if you keep playing and you just get further in the game, it opens up. We add in so many new systems and features in the game.
Yeah.
So it's got a lot of depth to it.
It's almost like it's funny that you say, because it seems like there's a test of patience, because the person who would play this game, like for me, I'd be just like, what is this? This is stupid. But that's just because I'm but at the same time, there is something sort of satisfying about when you're doing that, and there's something happening, because we are biologically incentivized as human beings to seek for instant gratification rewards.
Yep.
And that's biologically a part of us. Social media uses that, and video games can be programmed to some degree, and they are, because when you're playing a game and you hit something, a target, a score, whatever it is, you definitely get a feel of accomplishment. You definitely get this like jolt of, oh my god, that was cool, right? So you want to do it more. There's like this reward system that's like formulating inside of you to repeat that action over and over again, and be like, oh well, what is this? And then you start to get more creative in it. This is where like the games with full narrative stories, to me, are just like a total crazy realm, because I mean, I guess Fortnite is something we should talk about at some point today.
Sure.
But so getting into the game, now you're playing, you start to see there's more avenues to branch out. So how long has this game been around? You said like 7 months, 8 months?
About 5 years. 5 years in August.
Oh, 5 years.
Yeah.
Shit.
It has been
So this is one of the first games you guys really did.
Yep. And when we released it, keep in mind that the very early version, we released it because we wanted to like apply at other companies, right?
Right.
And my friend, he got a job at Facebook, and I got a job at Gearbox in Dallas. So
Got you.
He was in Facebook in Menlo Park, and then we just kind of not really went our separate ways, but location-wise, yes.
It's difficult, yeah.
But we kept, keeping in touch. We're like, hey, we have a game now. We need to support this. But now we're in two different companies, and like Gearbox in Dallas, they make games like Borderlands and Battleborn. I was working on Battleborn. Like, it's a AAA studio.
I see.
So what is a AAA studio? AAA studio is like when they're working on multi-million-dollar game projects.
We're talking like Grand Theft Auto type games?
Yes.
Like Rockstar Studios?
Yeah, huge games.
Huge games.
It's such a huge budget.
World of Warcraft type stuff.
Exactly.
Dude, funny thing, one of the engineers from World of Warcraft, this is like when I first moved into this country back, like, I think it was like 2004 or probably like 2003 or 4, when I was very young. And one of my neighbors who lived upstairs, I would see him, I'd come late in the evening time, when I'm playing outside and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to talking one day, and he gave me one of the earliest copies, not released yet, of World of Warcraft. Ooh. Because he was one of the physics engineers.
Wow.
And this is probably super illegal, and I don't know who the guy was, so I can't get him in trouble anymore. But at the same time, at that time, I didn't think it was anything that crazy, but I didn't even know what I was looking at. I was just this kid who is trying to put this game in. I did play video games. I used to play like some of those, like in India, they used to have a Nintendo version where it was the cassettes, but it wasn't called Nintendo. Oh, so all the games from probably Nintendo were there, but they were just not there. So I remember playing Mario a lot, and like Contra, and the ones where you shoot the aliens and stuff. Like,
oh yeah, Space Invaders.
Yeah, and there's another one, the Galaxy or Galaga or whatever.
Galaga, yep, that's a good one.
Played a bunch of those type of games. the highest I got in my like gameplay was Grand Theft Auto. Like I used to play, I've played a few of those, you know, even up until when I had a PSP, I would play. I think
Oh, that's a
Liberty City
classic.
Stories was one of the. I had one of the classic PSPs, the one that was glass and everything.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
And then I don't know, I don't know where it just stopped working one day or whatever. And then now the newer ones are so cheap looking, man.
I mean, that was a test of time because like back then, for it to be like those graphics, too,
Yeah,
it's
dude.
like, wow, this is
PSP
amazing.
graphics were freaking amazing. And then I guess that was a precursor, really. If you look at a PSP screen and an iPhone screen, it was roughly this, and the PSP had curves around it, right?
Yep.
Like, I mean, I guess it was the earliest beta test of people wanting to play games on their mobile, I guess, right? And then I remember, like, you know, Game Boy's always been around. You know, Game Boy Color, and then I had the Game Boy SP. I remember the one with the slip
my
open.
gosh.
Dude, throwback to Game Boy SP. Let's look that thing up.
I had one too. It was a red
I had to
one.
like, I had to like beg my parents to get me this damn thing. Dang, it's $1,200 on
Wow.
eBay.
Tribal limited.
What,
edition.
Mom? See,
Wait,
we should have
wait.
kept the thing.
Hold on, look at the one after that.
$17,000.
Even better.
What?
Oh, but then you look at the
Yeah.
next
60
one.
Yeah, no, I remember playing these like, and you know what? As an early point, as a kid playing video games, the one thing that I remember, they're very much like you get consumed. I remember playing like Grand Theft Auto like all day, like from like on a Saturday or Sunday. Like I would wake up, you know, like as a kid, you wake up at like 10 or 11, and you know you get some food, and then you get your snacks, and you start playing, and then all of a sudden it's like 5, 6 o'clock, and you're like, what the hell? I just like played this all day, but you were so engaged. And I didn't ever play a multiplayer game, so that was a world that I totally missed. You know, getting on the phone's headset because my parents didn't have like, I don't know, whatever it was, because I think you had to pay for it or something.
Yeah, Xbox Live subscription.
Yeah, I was always a PlayStation guy, so I grew up with PlayStation 2, and I had that's what I had. I think I still have it somewhere.
It's a
Playing
good console.
yeah, playing like the car racing games and stuff like that. But that's really it. Like after that, I haven't really been playing many games. There's really like no games on my phone, surprisingly. But I think, what is your take from, you know, 5 years ago, you guys built this game and people are into it. I mean, there's no denying that the game is somewhat like silly, but at the same time, there's the satisfaction to it. You know, what is being happy? It's like literally finding joy in simple things, right? So it's like, it's not so silly when that's the mechanism of how we operate. So like a game is really, how silly can a game be?
Yep.
But have you noticed, or have you like in the back of your mind have anything crawling there that kind of makes you feel like, what are we really doing? Like, is this really the right thing for kids or whatever? Like, tell me about that.
No, totally. One thing that I always like think about is like us humans, we're a working race.
Yes.
And, you know, our brain feeds off of those
Bring this
dopamine.
closer a little bit.
Our brain like feeds off of those endorphin releases.
Right.
Whenever you wake up, right? Why do people say like, hey, get started and make your bed? Because if that's the first thing you're going to do, you feel good after you complete the task.
Very true.
You know, you just got an endorphin release. You feel great. You got your drug hit of dopamine.
Basically.
Right? You're good. Now you're off to do more productive things, whether that's doing more errands, working.
Tidying up, getting yourself in order, starting your day.
Yep. And I feel like, you know, growing up in games as well, like that was huge too. Like, as you mentioned, you know, you could just be so engulfed in a game and like a couple of hours can go by. I feel like there's always a balance, right? The addiction's real, right?
Yes.
I was addicted to Roller Coaster Tycoon too.
Wow.
Have you played that game?
I think I've played a little bit.
Yeah.
Let me look it up. But yeah, keep telling me.
But I was playing like 12 hours, you know, a day, and my parents were all like, Kevin, get off. You know, what are you doing? But it was just so great. And from this experience, from this game, I wanted to be a roller coaster designer.
Wow.
I was all like, you know what? I really want to do this. Or I want to go into some sort of like management of a theme park, because I just love the idea. And they made it where you could build roller coasters and they would give you ratings for it.
Right.
So that like inspired me so much. And then like, I always feel like as you know, you go on, movies inspire you too. And games inspire you, right?
Yeah, I feel like there's an interplay between movies and games. We were just talking about Avengers before we got on the podcast. I mean, like, what are superheroes? And like, you know, you see their games, like, you have all of these different characters interplaying with each other. So there's definitely a strong influence.
Yes. And because if you think about it, like, I don't want to tangent too much. I'll bring it back right after this.
That's okay.
But, well, because I don't want to forget my point.
That's the hardest part about talking, man.
Yeah. But
we have all these hyperlinks of threads.
Yeah.
You know?
And when we first met, we were just doing very something similar, right?
Yeah, we were. We sat down. We just kind of went at it for a while.
And everybody left us. They're like, all right, you guys
these
have
two
fun.
guys are in the zone. We should walk away.
And that went down a really big well. But what I was saying is that I've noticed that through a lot of my friends that don't play games, a lot of people say like, oh, video games are way worse than movies, or video games are the ones being addictive, And I always see that comparison of like, hey, what's the difference if you're watching Netflix 12 hours a day, right? They're both a form of entertainment,
Right.
Video games might be more susceptible to addictiveness because they're engaging. They're an interactive movie.
I mean, there's no denying. I think there's scientific research to support that video games have definitely some significance to cognitive development in terms of like how your motor skills develop and your coordination and being able to. And I would say, I would go as far as even saying there probably hasn't been enough research done yet because this is a newer field, but of team gameplay and what that does for like teaching you things like empathy and camaraderie and things like that. I'm sure some of that research hasn't even been done yet, but like we're talking about like people getting on video games like Fortnite where they're doing these massive missions and stuff, right? As far as I understand, or like think of Call of Duty back in the day, right? Like you've got all these teams. Like what does that teach you? You're like cooperating with strangers, and that's how much of real world is that, like you have to have that as a skill. Yep.
And it's a feel good moment. And a lot of the games too, like the co-op games where you just join in with your friends, right?
Right.
Now you're not only do you have all the other benefits that you just mentioned, but now you're kind of bonding with your friends and you're creating these memories.
Right.
So a lot of my friends I've played video games with, I'd be like, remember that one time we got all those zombies around us, and you went ahead and just like carried the team and won the game for us. And even though this was in the video game itself, it still serves as a memory, right?
Right.
It was an activity we did together, and we're like,
how's that different than going out and doing an activity with your friends, like going skydiving or whatever? Like you're just doing these really, and as video games get better, these activities are becoming more and more and thrilling. They're more involved. They're more engaging of your biological senses. Like you really get like a rush of chemicals, like versus like when you were playing Tetris versus now you're playing like an RPG.
Yeah.
You got a fucking like machine gun. You're ready to just like, whoa. And then your controllers are moving and you got, and I can just wait for the VR games to get like a little bit more elaborate. I'm sure at some point, I think I told you this when we met, there's going to be a point where like some subset of the people are going to have like intravenous chemicals and things like that, where they're basically like in like a Matrix sort of situation, but it's a very high fidelity resolution.
Yeah. But, and like, I guess, like looking at the power of the internet, right? Like I still play games with my friend in Oregon.
Yeah.
And
keeps you guys connected.
Yep. And it's very important. I always feel like it is important for like interacting, in person.
Right.
But also it's like, hey, I have a friend in Oregon, I can call him, but me and him, whenever we play a game, we're like, hey, it's just like old times,
That's a very good point, because a lot of times nowadays most people don't call each other. They'll just text each other. But at least video games are becoming like, bring up a very interesting point. Video games are at least getting people to get on a communication level that's a little bit better than just texting.
Yep.
It's better to actually hear each other communicate. I'm sure people on video games talk about how their day was or about things, and
totally.
That translates into your life outside of it.
Yeah, like I remember in college, I would play this game called Team Fortress 2.
Team Fortress.
Team
Fortress.
Yeah.
I'll look that one up too. Tell me about it.
And this one was they had these 32 player servers, and you would just join a random team server, and you just pretty much just play with a whole bunch of people. They had so many different mods.
Wow.
So and I think one of the like action screenshots, if you want to pull it up, probably at the very maybe like that one down there. Yeah. So like these are a whole bunch of people that are kind of dancing in the server. How goofy is that? you're supposed to be going out there and like killing the other team, the enemy team, but this game had like a microculture in itself where it was like, hey, join this server of 32 people. People are talking about how their days are, how are people doing. They're making jokes. And then you have the certain scenarios of this where like, hey, everybody, let's just not play the game and let's all
just
dance.
hang out.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. Why kill each other? Let's just all hang out.
Exactly.
That's so cool.
But yeah, so to kind of bring it back, yeah, addictiveness is real. I feel like, there's also, but at the same time, I wouldn't bucket video games to being all bad, right?
Right.
And I feel like that's very common. I've noticed. All my friends are like, "Oh, video games. Oh, I would rather watch a movie."
There's a stigma attached to them for sure because I think some people. Well, okay, I'll call out something that's probably true. I think majority of the people suck at video games, and they're just too afraid to admit the fact that if they started playing video games, that they would probably lose and not do very well. And because most people are risk averse, where they'll avoid things that cause them pain and go towards things that give them pleasure, they probably wouldn't want to play a game or put themselves in a situation where they could be basically shamed, because like it's no different than like you getting stomped on the basketball court,
Totally.
or like losing it at a handball game in elementary school,
Yep.
like, so it's no different than that. So it's like people are like, oh, because if I have to play a game, then I have to kind of like be competitive and I have to get into it. But it's like, funny thing that you mentioned that. Quick side note, one of the researchers, I forget his name, but discovered that rats have a play mechanism inbuilt in them. And, we do a lot of research on rats because we have a lot of similarities to, I guess, their system of operation. And discovery of having a play mechanism is very important. Like, so what they would do, the rats that would have time to play with each other, like no different than like rough and tough play like children do. It's very much necessary for your development, because what you're doing in simulated play is you are putting out what an event could be like, a situation or circumstance, how it could play out, and you are learning how to deal with it, but in an environment that's also safe, and it's secure.
Huh.
Yeah, it's a very crazy thing. It's like play is very necessary for development, and this is true. Ask any parent. If child doesn't get time to play with other children, his development is definitely not going to be the same, and you can see that. So I think video games in some region are now replacing. Yeah, perhaps we need to have a more balanced life where you still go outside and have fun and things like that. But the lack thereof, people moving around. I mean, the world we're living in, jobs are people are congregating towards these areas where they might not necessarily fit in, but they're there because their family had to move. Like in your case, if you were in Texas, your friend's in Oregon, what better way to have that playtime with a friend? Because I mean, you can FaceTime with somebody, you can talk about your day and things like that. But what about playtime? Like and how is this different than friends going out drinking and then they get drunk and then they like start doing stupid things. But that has real consequences.
Exactly.
You can actually get in trouble.
And the health too.
And health wise, it's a bad thing. I mean, but you could argue video
both.
games can have some health diminishing returns there for sure. But again, in moderation and balance, they all have their meaning and their purpose there for our existence and for our betterment, I would say. I mean, I used to play some games about like brain games when they came out. I tried them for a little while. I'm like, okay, this is kind of cool. Like, I feel like I'm actually improving in some skill. I don't keep up with it, but I felt that, there's a need for sure, because learning wise, you can learn a lot from play.
Totally.
You can see where your boundaries are, where your limitations are, where you need to improve. Like, I was never really a good athlete in terms of like traditional sports. I was never exceptional at any of them, but and in video games I was okay. I was never like really, really good. Yeah. But I could feel like the sense of wanting to improve and get better, and like almost giving yourself like criticism when you sucked at it, or when you had a bad gameplay, or you lost a game. It's this real world. That's how it works. It's something that you have to come to terms with as an adult, as a human being.
Yeah. And on that note, what I feel like is extremely important is that you mentioned it's all like, you need to get better, right? And video games, if I, failed a level, right, in my mind, I'm thinking like, all right, what did I do wrong?
Right.
How am I going to get better? And, okay, that's how I'm going to get better. I wasn't accurate enough. Great. So these skills growing up, right? Hey, I failed my test in school. What did I do wrong? how am I going to get better? Right.
Good point.
Like I feel like that is very similar to that type of thinking. Really quick, I wanted to kind of go back to what your question was regarding, like, hey, kids playing our game, right? What was it exactly?
I was just wondering, so do you consider inside of your own like kind of consciousness when you're developing things or when you're looking for the next project or whenever, I guess, like there's so many concerns like in mainstream media. Oh, there's violence. We're seeing people with more gun violence. We're seeing more issues with addiction or people having social behavioral problems. And I guess people can make video games a martyr for that. And call that as a scapegoat, I should say, possibly. Like they would say, oh, video games are like adding to that because you're like being very violent in these rooms. But it's like, I don't know how, and I don't think the research doesn't support that in any way, as far as I can tell, because they did that with Grand Theft Auto. Rockstar Games got a big lawsuit because of that, right? Because some people who were playing GTA, I remember seeing this back in like, I think it was the 90s. There were some guys that went out and like shot up for real because he's like, well, it's so real in this game. Like Grand Theft Auto was revolutionary. There's no doubt about it.
Totally.
Like everything looks so real. Like they're copying maps from the real cities, making them look as real as they possibly could. So you're like in LA, you're shooting up, you're like part of the gang in LA.
Yep.
But there's no doubt about that. Like majority of the people that are operating from a sense of a belief system where they are, bounded by some social constraints are not going to go out and do that.
Yep.
But then there's always like that. It's a tipping scale. Like, are you really that unstable? And now this type of stimulus has made you more likely, but it's probably a very small subset of people. And this could be said about any activity though.
Yep.
But how much of that is it like you have to kind of like, as a video game company, think about?
So I know like a lot of, people have told me of saying like, hey, is Pitcrafter like kind of being like, is it a big revolutionary game, or do you like, why do you continue to work on it, right? And what I want to do is I really want, like, in the future, like, and a lot of the people on the team, they kind of share the same sentiment of hey, let's actually make something that can inspire kids to do something really cool with their lives, like go to space, make an idle game about space, right? You're tapping on maybe the moon and you're getting more moon or something like that, right? But that's like the end goal. And in our game Pitcrafter, it's got about maybe 11, 12 million downloads total.
11 to 12 million downloads. Yep. Holy cow.
So a lot of people play it. And I get these comments from people, from kids that are like, they send it to me on Discord, the chat app.
Yeah, Discord. I learned about that too. Yeah. It's a whole new world of how people communicate in the gaming world. Their own chat rooms and stuff.
It's very similar to Slack, but
yeah, it's very similar to Slack. I was going to say, yeah.
But it's really, really nice. So a lot of our players, they join our Discord and they message us and they like tell us things like, hey, this game is the best game ever. I love playing this game. And another person said that, hey, I have this condition and I need to have a form of stress relief from anxiety.
Anxiety relief.
Yep. And he plays it every day and he's like, all right, great. I love this,
It's helping with his anxiety.
Yes. For some
That's
people.
revolutionary.
Yeah.
No, that's a very good thing because, one of the things I talk about often in the podcast is how to be more present.
Mm-hmm.
Because anxiety essentially is that you are disconnected with the present and you are taking your activity in front of you and you're projecting these ideas of what else could be going on. Mm-hmm. It's like you're almost like living in this subthread of thought, and that the thing is, biologically, what we think about, those fears, they translate into real emotions in our body, and that's what anxiety is. It's like this weird eerie feeling of like uncomfort and like discomfort and feeling like something bad's gonna happen, or just like not being able to breathe fully, and all these things. I mean, it's a real thing for sure. If you haven't felt anxiety, you might just not even know that you are having an anxiety attack or you are feeling anxious.
Yep.
But it happens to every single person. And one of the key tricks that I've learned to get yourself out of an anxiety-filled state is to focus on your breathing. But all that is just saying, simply the process is saying you have to shift your focus onto something more present. Yep. And what's more present than your breath? I mean, shit, like you're breathing all the time. If you don't breathe, you're dead. So that's why it's like the easiest catch-all. But if a video game if being able to kind of say, oh, I'm recognizing that, oh my gosh, I'm feeling like anxious, I'm definitely not processing at my optimal level, and you know that I have this thing, I can open up my phone, I can go to this game that I like, and it helps me kind of just be more present.
Yep.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. So once I started seeing the whole team got these comments, and when I saw that, I was like, you know what, this is doing
Makes it
some
worth it,
really
dude.
exactly. Yeah, it's like, and these kids saying like, hey, this game is better than Half-Life 3.
What is Half-Life 3? Is that a competitor?
So it's like a game. Half-Life 2 is the game, and
We can't go there too quick.
but it's a well-known. It's one of my favorite games. It's done on PC, and I believe they also released it on a few consoles. But it's a really great like story-driven game.
I see.
It's very very. I really love it. But yeah, it was Half-Life 2. Yep. So Half-Life 3, everybody says it's in development, but it has never released. It's been years.
So it's just like a speculation.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Everybody makes jokes because they're like, oh, Valve doesn't know how to count to 3. So a lot of people are saying like, hey, Pickraptor is better than this game.
Wow.
And I'm all like...
I mean, I get what you're saying. There's sentiment is changing about what this little... Because, I mean, I started off by saying, what a useless game, right? But at the same time, that's so almost just like the knee-jerk social response. It's not well formulated. It doesn't go into the depth of analysis that it would take to look at anything.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of times, like, kids are growing up on consoles or high-end PCs? No. They're growing up on, iPhones, iPads, phones.
Right. Fair enough.
So, like, what games do they have access to, right? They don't have access to Half-Life 2 on your phone because that's a PC console game. And there's going to be, a lot of kids that would have never or probably will never play Super Mario World for the Super Nintendo.
Sure.
Oh, graphics look gross, right? I don't know. But, that's also, like, kind of can factor into these comments. But just getting these comments, it's a feel-good type of thing, so...
That's very cool, man. Yeah, I think there's to add to my point that I was making about anxiety, it's also recognizing, I guess this is where like the moderation comes in, where are you taking this thing to be a crutch because you're escaping from your reality, that you can't handle what's in front of you, and now you have to go and play video games to avoid what's in front of you, versus have you just been overwhelmed because of this is something that happens from time to time, and this becomes a tool that you leverage. There's a fine line between that, but then who's defining that? It's you individually.
Yep.
Or if you're a minor, then it would be hopefully a good parent or a caretaker or somebody that looks after you who can see that, hey, this behavior might not be ideal to continue forward. But then this is a more social problem. It's not a problem inherently with video games.
Yep.
This is a problem with any activity that you do or partake in.
Yeah, and I feel like we all have our own ways of coping.
Right.
With, we're all weird, right? We all have our own like tics, right? And we all have ways to cope with it or make it livable type of thing. But I feel like there are, some cases where like it's hard to control.
Yes.
Where
sometimes it feels like it's a drowning cloud. Like you're just in that state so deeply that you don't know how to get out of it. You don't know what to do.
Yep.
You're almost just like in a spiral, and it's a very bad downward spiral. It's a very heavy weight. I think in those cases, having memories of a game or a event or some activity that you can do to get yourself to that better state. And then also, I guess there's a part of self-awareness involved in recognizing, first off, that you have these different states. Do you know what I mean? Like so much of like, life is lived at least up until a certain point where we don't notice that, oh my gosh, yeah, there are times when I'm like feeling like this, and all of a sudden now I don't feel like that.
Yep.
Well, what took place to make that change of feeling and state happen? Was it automatic?
Yep.
Did I have any participation in that? And if so, if I did have participation, can I voluntarily change my state? All of those things are true. You have full control of everything. But then, as you're developing throughout life, you figure that out as you go. I just wish somebody would teach this stuff earlier on to as I was a young child or whatever. And I think your parents try to some degree, but at the same time, like, I feel like I might have, done better or whatever. But like, this is a very big thing that if video games could help people find that they have these states, and then coming to out of it is a process that they can take. I mean, that's a light bulb, man.
Yeah.
That's a very big light bulb to recognize.
Yeah, I always feel like I agree with the whole like, hey, you know, if we could teach this, but I always believe that like some things you need to make a mistake to learn, right?
Good point.
And you need to actually have, you know, if you tell somebody saying like, hey, don't do that, people will be like, okay, I know not to do this, but why, right? They don't really connect with the why not, right?
Right.
And, you know, mistakes help you learn. Mistakes help you get better. And sometimes like you just need to make that mistakes. Not everything is teachable, but a lot of items are. But some things need to be part of you, you know, through your own experience, right?
Yes. Very true. So 5 years, we got one game, Pit Crafter. Tell me, so how does revenue work for games like this? Like, since it's a free game that people download, how does a company, you know, make money? How does a business run? I mean, you got employees, you got costs, you got all this stuff going on.
Yeah, and I kind of want to expand on the kind of like the team. But right now with Pit Crafter, we have in-app purchases. So it's like, hey, if you want to get more, we have this premium currency. So what's premium currency is that it's a currency in the game that you use to get, the only way to get this type of currency is paying real money.
Right.
So it helps kind of, it helps the players kind of get a little bit faster in the game.
Gotcha.
Hey, you're going a little slow, you want a little boost, you know, so you can always, you know, opt in to purchase this. And then another one we want to do is that not everybody will spend money, and we implement like video ads. So like, let's say you want that same boost, but you don't have $1 or $2.
Got you. So you watch this ad.
So it's kind of like a balance of both ways, because if we made it strictly just, you know, in-app purchases, then a lot of people would be like, I don't have money, or I want to watch an ad, right? So usually like it all depends on the game, but it could be 50-50 split, like 50% ads revenue,
right?
50% in-app purchases. And just free to play, like the whole free to play model has like exploded in the last couple of years, because you look at games back in the day, remember like Super Mario 64 or Crash Bandicoot, you pay like $50, maybe $49 was the price point back then. And
games used to come also in a packaged way.
Yes.
Games used to be complete.
Yep.
Like, here's the game, $50, you get a copy, you do what you want with it.
Yep.
Pretty much that's it. But nowadays, in the world we're living in of continuous development of subscription, the promise really is, oh well, pay a marginal amount instead of paying $50. How about $5?
Yep.
How about $5 a month?
Yep.
And what we'll do is we'll continue to improve on this experience that you're having. And guess what? We'll even take in your account of what it is that you want in the game from feedback, and we'll put that into the game. So it's like this new wave of video games is coming out now, you know?
And I feel like in order to do this model right, it's a balance, you know? I remember we talked about balance a few times so far, but everything in moderation, and same thing with this. But if you look at Fortnite, right, everything that you can purchase in that game.
We've crossed the Fortnite.
Yeah. Everything you can purchase in that game, like cosmetics,
right,
things that don't really affect your gameplay.
Right.
So by purchasing something, you're not really becoming better than
at the game
other person. But you look cooler.
Yes.
So like, and when Fortnite released on iOS and on Google Play, they made millions of dollars. Like in the first few weeks, it was ridiculous.
And you know, you touch up on an interesting point psychologically, because I would be curious, well, why the hell would you care about what your character looks like on the game? But it's different now. Games are not just played by yourself in a living room. Now you're playing with a headset on, with a microphone on, with cameras, and you got people like looking at you, looking at your gameplay, and people are doing live streams of their gameplay. So it's like you want to show somebody something cool. You know, it's like you want to show your swag. It's no different than how people would buy nice clothes when they go out. It's no different than a sports athlete showing off his, you know, swag. It's no different than that. It's the same thing.
And part of it is that they magnify these clothing items because once you like kill an enemy,
Yeah.
then the camera just focuses on that person for a couple seconds. And guess what? You can probably do like a dance if you've unlocked a specific dance and you look really cool. Now you're all like, hey, take that, right? It's kind of like taunting, right?
Yeah.
So it's like the player that died, he's probably all like, oh my God, like why? But the player who has all these clothing items are like, oh, this feels good, type of moment.
So is this the staple for the company at this point, this game?
Yes. So there's a point in time where this game started pulling in more revenue than, we loved our jobs at Facebook, and I really love Gearbox. But, whenever your side thing is kind of like
overtaking.
Yeah.
The main thing.
Exactly.
It's time to switch to the side hustle full time.
Totally. And, people at Gearbox are like, I have some of my closest friends are still there, but there's a point where I was like, you know what we got to do, and I talked to Chris. I was like, hey, are we doing this?
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, we're doing this. I was like, all right, man.
So you guys had the balls to start a bootstrapped company yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty remarkable for people that don't understand what that means. That means they didn't go out to talk to their parents to get them money.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't go out to find funding from Shark Tank or investors. These guys said they believed in what they were doing so much, they decided to quit their jobs, and they started this business. They took whatever money they had themselves and invested it in the hopes and in the beliefs that they could really pull this thing through. I don't think most people will ever understand the amount of courage that takes.
Appreciate it, man. Yeah.
That's, to me, that's fucking amazing, man. That's crazy because you know that's the biggest reason why it's like you always want to be fed. You always want to have enough to eat. These are real survival inbuilt programming inside of us.
Mm-hmm.
And when you counter some of this and you go off of this faith, this sacrifice, this willingness, this discipline that you think is going to give you the ability to keep continuing forward, and it's like there's this level of negotiation you have to overcome in your own head to get you to that point where you think, all right, I'm gonna go this uncharted route.
Yep.
Because I can always come back to this other job world.
Exactly, because like fast forward 5-10 years and you'll be all like, what if I could have done that? Now I can't do it because I've got kids, I've got a family. Like, wonder what my life would be like
if I just risked it all.
Yep. And at the time we didn't have any kids, we weren't married, so we're like, you know what, let's go ahead and make this switch. And there was a point in time where we wanted to also hire on more people because we couldn't have overworked ourselves, right?
Right.
It doesn't make
There's
sense.
just two people, it doesn't scale. You got to run a business now. You can't just be coding all day.
Yep.
Hitting into that problem.
Exactly. And you don't want to scale too fast too.
Right.
So over the years, we got more people on our team, and we're a total team of 5 now.
Awesome. 5 developers.
Fiveamp.
Fiveamp. Hey, that's cool. What happens when you get 6 people? You gonna change the name?
That's a good. We'll address it when we get there.
We'll address that concern when we get there. I like that. You know what? Actually, that's funny because as a business owner, I'm sure a very big change has happened in your life. You don't get really time to rest. You really have to figure that out yourself because you don't have deadlines to other people necessarily. It's like all structure that you have to put together that wasn't there before. Like you got to get up at the same time.
Yeah.
You got to, figure out when you need to stop working.
Yeah.
And when do you stop working? When do you decide? Because you're always going to want to keep going because you have now a business uphold, and customers, and you have employees whose paychecks depend on it.
Yep.
So it's very different lifestyle.
Yeah, like the whole waking up early was a big change for us. And sometimes
because most coders, if you look at Silicon Valley, most coders don't even come into the office till like 10 or 11.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
So
and that's like we're totally night owls. We'll be working till like 4 a.m., 5 a.m. And then we're like, oh crap, we gotta stand up in 6 hours. Oh, we need to go to sleep. Come on, Chris, let's go. Like holding each other accountable. But that was like a tough change because a few people on our team are morning birds, and we're like, oh man, this is oops.
It's funny. Most companies stand-ups are usually around like 11 a.m. or something because they know people are gonna stroll in late.
Yeah,
that's really funny.
But now it's we have the talent to make new games, and we started, doing more updates for Pickcrafter with the team. But then what we kind of recognized is that it doesn't make sense to have all your bets on one place, right?
Sure.
All your eggs in one basket. So it's like Pickcrafter can be seen as a basket, right? And if we just have everything depend on Pickcrafter, then it's like, okay, well, if something happens to Pickcrafter,
What happens then?
That's the question, right? So we decided to continue towards a new game, and that new game, after talking about it with the team, was this game called Super Doggo Snack Time.
Super Doggo. Who doesn't like dogs?
And we have a trailer for this too as well.
Let's check it out. Oh yeah.
So the whole goal of the game is that it's more arcade. So think of like Fruit Ninja. But you got to catch everything.
That's pretty cool, man.
But
very cool.
So we really enjoyed working on this game. However, when we released it, it didn't really take off. Like, we didn't get that spike.
So you've had this one game that was like a hit. So how many years after the first game did you start developing this one?
It was about 3 years.
3 years into starting the business. So this is very recent. You mean 3 years ago this game came out?
Oh, no. It was 3 years after Pickcrafter got released.
Got you. So it's very recent.
Yeah. So this
Last
was,
year.
I think if you go back to
2017. May 2018. So yeah, it's not that old. Actually, almost a year old now.
Yeah, and with this one, we kind of like with Pickcrafter being like, Pickcrafter made it look easy. Hey, release, boom, we're done, right?
Wow.
And
which is cool because you had like this one success, which is not true for most companies.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. The
it's
first
very
success.
Hard.
Yeah.
And so we kind of like operated on our gut feeling for Super Doggo Snack Time. We still love the game. However, we weren't looking at analytics. We weren't. A lot of the decisions were like, yeah, this feels good. This feels great. This is going to be...
Feelings.
Exactly. And they're very important.
Unreliable.
They're very important, but at the same time, you can't, you need a little bit of balance,
yes. Right? That's the theme of this whole talk today is balance.
So, when we released, we also were kind of doing some marketing tactics that, we would put posters around, the city of Austin, right? And be like, hey, everybody, check out this
new game. Yeah, fair enough.
And it didn't really hit at all.
Yeah.
And, we were kind of, disappointed after that. But, we're not going to let things, we're going to just move on. But we need to learn from it, learn from our mistakes, right? And, Doggo really taught us that analytics are very important. You need to learn, where the user is getting, where they're getting tired from. And the game was just too hard. A lot of people were complaining, saying, this game is really too hard. But that's kind of what we were aiming for.
A little next level of difficulty.
Yeah, kind of like a Flappy Bird type of thing.
Yeah, Flappy Bird, I remember you had to keep tapping the screen and it would just jump down. It's a very difficult game.
Yep. So this one, I still love it, right? I love the artwork, all the dogs. Like that dog.
Funny thing, you have a dog game because back in college at UCI, one of my project courses, I think I told you about this. We had to develop a game, so I wrote an Android game. I think it was Nginx, what we were using as the framework, and it was a tablet game. It was 5 of us, and me being not really that interested in doing the coding, I took me and then 2 of the girls in our team. We started developing everything else, and then we had 2 people full-time coding or doing all of the framework setup. So we had these skeletons of games, but no artwork, no logic, no storyline to them. So we developed this game for kids, and it was The Adventures of Doge. Doge the dog.
Awesome.
That was the game. It was a really cool game. And then we had we were using Illustrator to draw out these scenes. It was basically Doge walks around, he gets bullied by cats, and then he has to code through these little adventures, and he's got to watch out for the dog catcher, because the dog catcher is going to come and get Doge.
That's so awesome.
He's a dog on the streets, and
he eats
pictures, gangster cats. I don't have anything loaded up.
Do you have a website?
No, I don't. I got to talk to my friends from back in the day. I'm sure somebody has that somewhere. We even got voted to be in the finals for like these games in the school for the campus. We didn't win, but it was just a really cool experience to do that. So like I totally get in 10 weeks to make a game. It was very, very involved.
Wow.
Like each person was doing like the coding people were doing their part for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But man, we were not messing around, like drawing stuff, coloring stuff, making sure that like it all has a narrative, and then doing like voiceovers. You know how we were doing voiceover? We took the Apple headphones, we took the cord of that because it was a microphone. I would hang it, put a piece of tape on it, and then get real close to it, record that, and dub that as the audio. So much work goes into making a game, man.
Yep.
So much work.
We got art, textures, modeling.
And our game was shit compared to like a game that you guys are actually selling on the App Store in terms of graphics.
Yeah.
Like our graphics were like, but at the same time it worked because it was a children's game. So like the graphics didn't have to look all proportional and perfect. And it worked out. I mean, there was a lot of work went into it though. But seriously, what a crazy idea. I like the concept. That reminded me that just seeing the dog reminded me of the Doge game that we had.
See the little taco hat too.
That's funny.
That's our artist is amazing. He's so talented. Like he does 2D
In-house
and 3D.
artist now?
Yes. Yep.
Wow. Amazing.
And that's not really some studios do it, but it's not as common as getting a full-time person part of your team.
Right, of course. And that person is involved with more creativeness and like has more input into what can and can't happen within the company. So I think that's a very, very cool thing to have, an in-house artist.
We're very fortunate to have him. He's been awesome.
Nice, man.
So when we released this game, it didn't do as well, but we learned a lot from it. And that's what, I feel like is the most important.
What did you learn? Tell me a few things you guys learned.
Well, we learned that, your gut feeling does matter, but you need a balance of analytics. You need to really understand where the player's going, right? Also the theme, right? Theme being dogs,
right?
Keywords on Google Play, right? It's like what's the most popular thing that people search on Google, right? You could look at these Google trends and see like, hey, people are really searching, like, for example, something happens in basketball. Now everybody's searching basketball, right? So certain keywords become like relevant, right? So Google Play and the Apple App Store, they have very similar things. It's like they have their own keywords. So what keywords are people searching for on Google Play? Like what is everybody like searching for when they want to play a game? Or is it dogs, cats? In terms of this game, right? How does this connect?
Yeah.
Right. And, so like maybe the dog theme wasn't as popular as compared to cats. There's a lot of open questions, right? And we didn't really think of the theme. We love dogs. And, but that's another thing that just needs to go into the planning of the game.
Right.
But after this game, though, we kind of leveled up on our analytics front. And, we're the next game that we have.
The next game, just a quick preview for everybody, is called Coffee Craze. It's about crack addicts that are addicted to coffee. Just kidding. It's funny, man. The artwork here is amazing.
Yep. It's the same artist.
Amazing art.
Yeah. His name is Chris as well.
Can you talk about the concept of this? Or do you want to finish what you were saying first?
No, okay. I could talk about this, definitely. So it kind of started off, the initial design pitch was more of, hey, the world has run out of coffee.
Oh, nice.
And
have you seen Daybreakers?
No, I haven't.
The movie about vampires where the humans are being farmed for blood.
Oh, I've heard about it. I've heard about it.
Yeah, same concept that the world's running out of blood and it's overtaken by vampires. So what are blood alternatives?
Wow.
They have like Starbucks where they do give you coffee with a pump of human blood.
Are you?
I'm not even shitting with you, man. That's a real thing. Maybe I should look it up.
Wow, that sounds very holy crap.
Starbucks. Anyway, tell me the concept. Here, hold on. Let's just see if we can find it real quick because I think this will be worth checking out.
Sure,
it's called Daybreakers. Oh, here we go. This is it. They're in a train station.
This is not what I asked for.
Read the sign, sir. We're now only permitted to serve 5% blood with every coffee.
I don't care what the sign says.
Ooh.
Oh, man.
I know. It starts the whole riot. See, those are blood vials over there. Guy's going crazy. Blood, man. Blood. This is crazy. But yeah, that's so to me, when I saw that, I was looking at, this guy right here. I'm thinking, well, that looks like they're going to be zombies over coffee.
Yeah. So this was the design, or the theme has changed from this concept, but the original concept is like, hey, coffee can only be found on the moon. So the coffee, as you can see in the moon, it has a little beam coming down.
Right.
And so it's like this kind of helps grow coffee or sends coffee. And you need to run your coffee shop. And there, in the initial pitch, there were zombies, like zombie-like people.
Yeah, people that are asleep.
Yep. But if you think about it, something that we're learning actively right now is that theme really matters. And right now you got a type of coffee shop game that's very casual.
Yeah.
People that go to coffee shops or play coffee shop games, they're very...
I didn't even know that was a niche of games, by the way, coffee shop games.
There's a lot, yeah.
Damn.
So, but people just want to, like, chill out.
Yeah.
And, it's very similar to what we talked about with Pickcrafter, chill out, maybe, like, people with anxiety, maybe they just want to, like, kind of cope with it. But that's kind of, like, the mentality for a lot of the coffee shop type of games. It's a very chill environment. And then with coffee, we introduce, these zombies, right? Which is polar opposite of chill. It's very hectic. You have people just running around like crazy. Yeah. So the theme is still being iterated on, and we're kind of tweaking things.
When's the expected release of Coffee Craze?
Right now, maybe around June is what we're targeting.
June this year, huh?
Yep.
Wow. I'm going to check this one out.
Yeah.
This seems really relevant. I mean, there's no doubt that you guys are kind of touching up on some subtext of our culture and the themes behind, I see myself when I was working in the industry and going into the office, I would at one point be going, first thing as I get in the office would be taking a double espresso shot. Putting that in my coffee cup, putting a little bit of creamer on it because it tastes like shit, and then just sipping on that for like the first hour of the day, and I was just like, what? But and I've also been a competitive athlete, so at one point in my life, I was so much into the caffeine world where I was consuming anywhere from, I think, 400 to 800 milligrams of caffeine a day, and still being able to like go to sleep. Meaning, like, caffeine has such a disproportionate amount of its effects and how much more you're gonna need over time, because it just multiplies. Like, you really have to use some balance with your coffee intake, and so that way you don't get too crazy where you have to take in more and more compressed or condensed versions of it, like espresso or shots of espresso or like those Red Bull drinks. I was doing like caffeine pills, like 200 milligram caffeine pills.
Those are intense.
Off of Amazon. I kid you not. I've mentioned this in the past, but like the way I used to get myself out of bed for 5:30 a.m. 5 a.m. On the stair mill is about like 4:50ish. My alarm would ring, and I would always have a caffeine pill with a glass of water right next to my bed. And as the alarm would ring, I didn't want to get up, so I'd reach that, put that in my mouth, drink a little bit of water, go back to sleep. And in like 10 minutes, I'd be like, whoa, let's go. But that dies down really quick. You do that for 2 weeks straight, you'll see that doesn't work either.
That's hardcore.
I know. But it works, but it doesn't work as well. So you have to keep upping the dosage. Anyway, terrible thing. But caffeine is a real thing. I mean, we use it all the time. Starbucks, look at one of the biggest chains, they're and then now that's a normal part of the culture, and we can talk about different drugs and how they work, but I don't want to derail the conversation that way right away. But this concept, I think, is very interesting. One thing I do want to touch on that I think might be good for people to understand is when we met, we were talking about this, like how video games and games in general are competitive for sure, but it is cooperative competition, because there are certain boundaries, there are rules you have to agree upon that you can do and you can't do. And if everybody doesn't play by those rules, then nobody wants to play with you. Totally. Right? And like people have these, like you were talking about, you kill this character and you taunt them, but at the same time, like that's agreed upon that's part of the game, and you're playing a game, and then these people that you're playing with, you are not competing with them in a really biological way, you're competing with them in a play manner.
Yep.
Like, think of basketball games, right? Like, there's competition, but there's cooperation. You got to play within the team. You can't like go and punch people and stuff, right? Like, there's certain rules of things you can and can't do.
Yeah.
Same thing applies for video games. It's like competition. And now you see these gaming competitions. I mean, like, fuck, how much money do these gamers make now? Like, it's amazing. There's a real job being a gamer now. This was not a thing
Yep.
back in the day.
Yeah, and you have these. I think they get paid. Like some of them get paid six figures too.
Yeah.
But
And they have these tournaments, right? Like,
yeah.
what are some of the big ones called?
it's like Overwatch League. So OWL.
Oh, our Overwatch League.
Yeah, that's a big one. But yeah, like I mean, being a full time
Dude, yeah.
video game player is intense because I mean, you're just playing games constantly. Like
This is like the NFL, the NBA of gaming, basically.
yeah, I think this is probably like one of the most well done leagues.
And I used to make fun of people when I was a bodybuilder. No joke. I would look at like a lot of my friends that were getting into games and Xboxes and stuff. And this was like early college. I was like, what a waste of time. Like, go do something with your life. And not realizing. And one of my friends told me this. It's like, well, how is this any different? Because they would watch people's gameplay, and I'm like, why would you watch other people's gameplay? It's like, well, why would you watch a basketball game? Why are you watching other people play a game? Why don't you go play the game yourself? I'm like, that's a very good point.
Yep.
Because when you watch other people play the game you're trying to play, you get to learn a lot from them.
Yep.
There's a lot that you can pick up on. And that's the same thing I would do is like, why am I watching other people's workout videos? You know, why am I learning from watching other people's sessions of podcasts and things like that? It's because you can learn a lot from watching other people and how they do it and how they've perfected it.
Totally. Yep.
Very cool, man. Very cool. So 3 games under the belt, or the third one coming out.
Yep. And I think if you go back to the Coffee Craze one,
Coffee one. I think I closed it, but here we go. Let's go there.
it should have like does it have extra screenshots if you scroll down or
Not there. I think it does here.
if you click on if you go back if you click on the or to the other tab, the coffee one, and you click on early access, that should actually show so this is our Google Play listing.
Okay.
So this is kind of out now, but it's in early access. So we're still doing feature updates. We're still fixing bugs. We're getting players' feedback.
Gotcha.
And with it being in early access, now we can get early player behavior analytics.
So you can improve it.
Yes. So this is something that, I'm very proud of the team for, coming this far. But now we're making a game and we're looking at like, hey, are people coming back to the game? What are they doing? How do they like the game, right? And we're using analytics to like further improve it, further improve the first few steps.
It seems like this game has more of a narrative than the other 2 that you guys have.
Yes.
There's a continuation factor to it, more so.
Yeah. And also it kind of like whenever you unlock your shop, right? Each shop is very unique.
Okay.
And we also have like a crane game in the moon. Yeah. But if you think about it, like we're removing the moon theme, so having a claw game in the moon doesn't really make sense anymore. But it's just something that we're going to be iterating over time.
I think it's really cool what you mentioned earlier. Like if you have a game about space, and what if, look at Elon Musk, right? Look at what we're trying to do with our space adventures and stuff. And to some degree, why the hell not, right? Like somebody wants to do that, and that's his thing, and why not? And I think we're all going to benefit from it. At the same time, I think I've heard Elon Musk say, it's like, if going into the outer like stratosphere of our universe is not in the future of our existence, then I don't even want to be a part of it. Like to some degree, he was saying that. Like he's like, why wouldn't you like want to do that?
Yeah, it's in our blood. We want to continue on the human species.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's biological for sure. In some ways, survival.
Yep. And kind of recognizing that, hey, we're all on. And this is kind of getting deep, but I like deep,
man.
I
Get
like
deep. Let's do it.
But it's like very similar to Pickrafter. You have all your eggs in one basket, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with Earth, right? Earth is very important, but at the same time, like we need to take care of Earth. But you know how fragile we are.
Yes.
Like there could be a meteorite, there could be an asteroid.
Yes.
And like no matter how well kept the planet is, there's some things that we just can't avoid, right? And I'm not saying that that's going to happen in the next 100,000 years, but it is a possibility, right?
Right.
We just don't know. And there's a thing on the History Channel that showed like 10 ways that the Earth could just end immediately, like next day, done. And there's like you have gamma ray particles, and if any of them just like strike Earth, that would totally like.
Historically, there have been events on this planet that literally have shifted the temperature on Earth from like positive or whatever plus 80 degrees to like minus 200 degrees and like freeze over.
Yeah.
I don't know what the minus limit was, but it was something so drastic that they have found a specific animal. I forget the name of it. It's like some sort of like a mammoth type of animal, but one of those. And they've found that in his or her belly that there was still, after, the ice was all melted and stuff, there was still like actual food that like frosted over.
Whoa.
So meaning like there was vegetation on that day that animal could eat. And within the matter of less than 24 hours,
wow,
everything froze over.
Wow.
That's fucking crazy.
It's like Day After Tomorrow. What was that movie? Where like it was so cold outside they just can't step outside.
Oh,
was it Day After Tomorrow?
I think so. I don't remember.
Yeah,
you were talking about what is it, Stormpiercer?
Yeah,
The train where the last survivors are on the train.
Yeah,
that's a pretty crazy movie. They're eating crickets and shit, cricket protein.
Oh,
and that's
yeah.
a real thing now. We have cricket protein on the market. That's a real thing.
But yeah, I just feel like part of like, hey, it's in our blood, right? I always feel like, hey, if something does happen on Earth, guess what? We'll have like a Mars base so we can start over, right?
Yeah.
It's not saying like, hey, let's go ahead and trash this planet. Let's just go leave. No, because going to Mars might be more risky, right?
Yes.
So it's a balance, right?
Balance. That's life. It's a balance.
But
dude, let's talk a little bit about simulation theory.
Ooh.
I'm curious.
Sure.
Because we're talking about something that is going to keep growing, the video game world. And I think at one point we talked about this at when we met. It was, there's going to be a point where we're going to start using these biological systems, our bodies, and exploiting, and we will learn enough, even more than we know now, about our systems and how we can operate them using chemical stimuluses and how much of the depth of video games with virtual reality and perhaps even like implants where your like eyes are almost like circuited with something that just bypasses like overstimulation basically is what I'm trying to say, where they're gonna like transport you into feeling as if you're in like a Matrix simulation where you're actually inside of a new world, so immersed that you can't even tell that you're in it. And there's been a couple movies that have like kind of done this, like the Avatar, and I think there was one movie with like Bruce Willis when he's old and he's like part of you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the one where he controls other people.
You can control, like, basically everybody steps into like a avatar of their body, but it's on Earth.
I forget what it's called.
Yeah, I'm forgetting it too. But anyway, point being, I was thinking, like, how would you discern if we currently right now are not in just this massive simulation? Or what do you think about that?
I mean, it's kind of similar to like, hey man, you need to wake up.
Yeah.
Wake up. You're in a coma right now. You've been in a coma for the last few years. Whoa, I don't know why I just said that. That was really weird. But you know what I'm saying? Is that like, I mean, it's totally possible, right? You look at dreams, right? You have those dreams where you just go to sleep and
you're like, we don't know where you are.
You are just so in the dream. It just feels so real, right? And like, what if this is all a dream? What if this is a coma? And those are the things that, it's really like hard to prove too, right? I totally would believe it, right?
Yeah.
I think it's a very creative and gnarly theory that I really like am interested in.
Yeah, because think of being some sort of a creator. Wouldn't you create something where it was so much depth? Because it's like, let's say you have this time here. We have the concept of time.
Yep.
We're born and we die. Everything else in the middle is just the time we have to spend here.
Yep.
Right. So wouldn't you want to create something here that was so deep in terms of what you could do experientially that it's hard to like, get bored really? But people get bored, but I see. There's so many things, like so much depth to our existence, like which we're trying to simulate now in video games. We're trying to like think of, I guess the analogy would be think of like a game like Grand Theft Auto where they are actually simulating the cities to look the same, the buildings to look the same.
Yep.
And at some point you could potentially step into a virtual version of the world without the real consequences of your actions.
Yeah. Yeah.
And here today, look at the fidelity, the depth of our fidelity. Like this experience, we are in this avatar that's so like real. We can feel the sensations of it. It has its own like quirks, its all own biology. You know, one exercise that I like to do with all of my guests, which I could like to do with you,
Sure.
is if we just for a moment, you know, shelve everything that we know about our history, about our memories, you know, just wipe it all away right now.
Yep.
And right now in this conversation from this point on, we're just going to refer to only being present. And we're not going to go touch our past. So let's say you came into this room and your past is outside. Your memories are outside. Let's just say your mind is outside. And you're going to step in here right now and sit down and just be present with me as who you are without those memories. Can you do that?
I say yes.
Okay. Don't think because you can't think. Thinking is about the past.
Yeah.
So just be present. So right now, all I want you to do is just answer to me and be present with me. Listen to my voice. Don't even try to think about what I'm trying to say. You don't have to visualize anything. No effort.
Gotcha.
No effort's needed right now. Just being present in this moment right here. Do you feel anything that's different inside of your inner environment? When you live in that state where you don't have to consider, you can simply just be.
I do.
Don't think about it.
Yeah. Well, when I do feel like it feels much more.
Empty?
Yeah, but also like kind of weight's being lifted.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I just like kind of just, you know, don't think about anything. It's just like let everything go and just, all right, what question did you ask? All right, nothing else matters. And then now like, you know, you get that weight lifted off. Right.
Yeah. I've been kind of practicing this more and more in the last few years. I've learned a lot of it with meditation and on some of the people that I follow, like that talk about like the spirit and things like that. It's funny because like people discount forces that we can't see, yet gravity exists, yet the wind exists, and all these metaphysical things are just discounted completely. But at the same time, forces exist in our nature that we don't completely understand and we certainly can't see.
Yep.
So completely denying that there's no such thing as a spirit inside of us is just a very weak argument.
Yeah.
I would say it's a weak argument to start. And experientially, when I've been extremely stressed out and depressed or bummed out about life, seeing that nothing outside of just a story is playing inside of my head at all times, narrating what's going on inside of me, what's going on outside of me that I'm seeing, and then just projecting on these layers and layers of abstraction.
Yeah.
It just gets me to experience where I'm simply observing everything that's happening here. It's all coming into this place. So it's like, how am I any different than, let's say, the Terminator who comes in and has like all these capabilities of a human being and these different layers of analysis? Like we're kind of like that. We are, in a way, sitting here and we have these memories that we can call upon events that have happened to dissect our environment. That's how we articulate. That's how we like move around and like do things. We're able to walk without falling over because we can see there's a step that we got to climb, right? Because memory serves, you got to lift your foot up to go up this. But without those memories, we'd be screwed, right? So there's a certain need for memories for survival. But beyond that, memories is no different than like your hard drive. You can store a bunch of garbage on your computer, you know, and let that like pile up. The problem is your mind is really good, and this is where like the unconscious mind comes in that they call, or the mind that is acting when you're not aware of it, right? This is a lot of it's like when you're driving and you're not aware of it, autopilot. So there's all these things that become like these motor patterns. They call them like they fire up in your body. They're ballistic. They leave and then you can't bring them back. Like anxiety is one of them. It's a programmed response, but you can also reprogram your responses to some of these things. So I guess the point I was trying to make is, how can we say that, you know, there's a certain level of simulated programming that's happened inside of us that we're operating from, but we're not aware of. It's like we're like the most controlled system. This is where like mass marketing and social media and TVs and radios, even all of that stuff comes into play. It's like there's this social like normal way of being, and we're all like operating from these images and these stimuluses that we see around us, and they become the framework of our life. But those are also the things that are causing us the chaos too. So there has to be a way to detach from all of that. And like one of the ways I do it is with this type of an exercise, where if you can sit for a minute or something in a space where you're not letting these thoughts run wild, and simply let them just part ways, and you simply just stay. You can do this at any point in your time, at any day, at any time, and you'll feel like that liftedness.
I sometimes do like an intense shower thoughts, like just sit down in the bathroom on the bathtub floor, have the shower going on, and then just like immediately just like let the mind wander type thing. Just be like, oh, all right, what do I need to do? Sometimes it's work, but it's the creative thing of work of like, oh, let's say I'm in the middle of a problem. All right, now kind of just let it go crazy on this problem. But then a lot of times if it's not work, it's just all like, oh, let me just randomly think, just let it go crazy, right? And it's all like, and it feels good, right? And I feel like that's...
How far does this go? Let me go into the story.
Exactly. And then 30 minutes later, I should get out of the shower. But, I feel like that's very important.
I think acting in presence is the key to like get yourself out of anxiety, get yourself out of any emotion that you don't like, because our bodies are programmed to a certain degree, or I should say our psychology is programmed to a certain degree by the way we were raised, by the environment that we grew up in, and all of that. So there are some of these responses that are so knee-jerk to you, but unless you become more aware of them, you then start to realize that you can actually change your response to some of these events. Like when you go out and you see a homeless person, rather than thinking that's just a bum, a loser, good for nothing, you might be able to be more present and see that the guy looks really thirsty. And maybe he's just really struggling and he just needs water, and perhaps you could be that for him. And whatever it is. I mean, I'm not saying like go out and like just hang out with homeless people. I'm not promoting any of that. All I'm saying is I'm giving an example of how like when you're more present with your environment, you get to observe things that are outside of your biases, that are outside of your own programming. And ideally you would want to have a group of friends who are not going to judge you for your biases, but they'll be able to call them out to you when you seem to be operating from a very close personal place, and you're not seeing the repercussions of your actions. You're not seeing the problem with your thought process because you're so attached to it.
And it's like I strongly agree with like the environment that everybody grows up in, right? Like growing up in Texas can be way different than growing up in New York, right?
Sure.
Because you have these like microcultures everywhere. But I totally agree, and I think right now in the society, like, what's the number one thing that we judge a person based off of? What do you think?
Well, we look at the way they look, the color of their skin.
That's a big one. And then I also feel like they also care about what do you do for a living.
Who are you and what do you do? Those are the number 1 and 2 questions that I ask you. What's your name and what do you do? Well, what the hell does that mean? Everything I do, you want me to tell you? Or no, what you're more interested in, what part of society am I getting my money from?
Exactly. But does your job make you who you are?
No. Those are just roles. This is the fundamental understanding that you in your life are playing different roles. But you are not any of those roles.
You're your own self. Your own being, right?
Yes. And then this is where like the spiritual part comes in. Well, if you're not any of those things, then what are you really? Are you just this breath in this body? And it has this manifestation and this vehicle to operate from. A lot of the older texts, like I have some Indian older spiritual texts over there, and different psychological texts that I've read where they're talking about Western stories and Eastern stories and correlations with them, And growing up, heard all these stories. Like my grandma used to always tell us, my mom too, about like that there's a spirit inside of us. So it almost became like this inbuilt belief. But experientially, I would say that I'm of a firm belief that that's exactly what it is. It's that we are this spirit who has this pureness inside of each and every single one of us. But then there's also this mind voice that is so well disguised that we can't discern if the voice that we're hearing is the truth or if
Yeah.
it's just a projection, because the voice becomes so personal. The voice could be a parent's voice. The voice could be your own voice. The voice could be somebody that you know
Yeah.
speaking to you, and you just believe it.
Yeah. And part of that is like there's so much of the brain that we don't know.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, we kind of like are learning like, oh, this is what happens when you get a lot of stress. You know, this part of the brain becomes more active.
Right.
But, you know, we still don't fully understand
Right.
the brain. And I find that it's just so
I mean, creativity
marvelous, right?
itself. Creativity has been studied. The research that does exist shows that there has to be some amount of disinhibition between your frontal cortex and the rest of your brain. So people, as they deteriorate, their brain deteriorates over age. Some people will become more creative because they're not so attached to like the sort of the logistics of how everything works, right? And some medicines, like, okay, they say, I think I was listening to one of the podcasts where it was the psychologist Jordan Peterson was talking to somebody else, and he was talking about, well, what about like anesthetics? Because anesthetics, yes, they put you out, but anesthesiologists don't understand how it's doing that. They just know that if you do this, there's this side effect that you pass out and you're not going to be in pain.
Yeah.
But what's actually operating inside, we still don't fully understand, how that works. But what is understood is that a part of your frontal cortex is disconnected from the rest of your mind or your brain. So you're essentially in this weird sort of disconnected space that what if you microdosed anesthesia, that it could potentially bring about creativity because you have this mild state of disinhibition. I mean, you could talk about this with cannabis.
Yeah.
You can talk about this LSD, people that microdose that, or different psychedelics and things like that. Like, there's a certain level of disinhibition that takes place that allows you to flow. So it's almost like there's stimulants that exist that allow you to open up these gates of creativity, or this world. It's almost like this. There's a very strong structure, but then you have the capability of like opening up certain pathways, which they allow you to really explore the world from a whole different place of, seeing, really.
Yeah. And part of that is like, I feel like we're just so used to it. We consume so much in the society. For example, when making a new game, right? We play games for, to see what other people are doing, and we're also making games. But if we want to make a new game, it's really hard to be all like, oh, it's like this, because a lot of the games are like this game plus this, like an innovation, right?
Right.
But if you want to do a whole entire brand new, never seen before gameplay, that requires a lot of creativity. Same thing with making a new song, right? It's like, hey, this song sounds like this other song. It's like you got to, separate yourself. You got to like, and a lot of my friends that are musicians, they don't listen to any music for like a whole year so that whenever they're ready to start making
it's
their
something
song.
brand new.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we're used to it, right? We're just so used to our surroundings. But
You brought up something that just sparked this question in my head about like, what would you say, like, how long did it take to build, the first game versus the second one and now the third one that you're working on? Like, does the time that it takes, tell me a little bit about that. Did it improve, and how long did it take to do?
Yeah. The first game, it probably took us, it was a very quick game, but there was a big learning curve.
Right.
So I would say maybe like 6 months, nights and weekends type of thing. But
how many hours a week would you say? 80?
I mean, we were also kind of, it was on
you
the
were
side
working at
type
the same
of-
time.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
right.
So the second one, though, probably about, it was close to being maybe about a year.
Yeah.
But I think our studio, we have a habit of polishing games because we want them to look really nice.
Yeah.
And a lot of our friends and feedback, whenever they play our games, are like, whoa, this looks really polished. Like, the production value is huge.
Yeah.
And, that could be good, but at the same time, like, if the game isn't there, but it looks very nice.
Yes. It's lipstick on a pig.
Yep. So,
Not that there's anything wrong with pigs, but I'm not personally a fan of kissing no pigs.
Yeah. But part of that is like, you need to make sure that, and we've gotten better, but like a big part of that polish does take a lot of time.
Right.
And then now with Coffee Craze, it's been about a year now, so it's still a year cadence, but we really want to start making games that are like scoped smaller. And we're like, great, we have this small game.
Yeah.
Let's do an early access and see what people think of it.
Got you.
And then kind of keep doing this for future games. Maybe in the next one after Coffee Craze, we have 2 game ideas. And something that we've been tossing around is like, hey, what if we compare these 2 games together? And whichever one has better metrics, we'll decide to fully work on that game.
Got you.
But yeah, it's been about a year turnaround type of thing.
And where do you see yourself kind of taking this ship that you guys are on right now?
We really like love games. We really love like the entertainment of games. Right now, we're kind of making the best choice, the less risky choices. So, for example, we could actually make an Xbox game about space if we wanted to. That would be awesome. Like that's like, hey, one of my future goals. But to do it now, that's really risky. Right?
I see.
Because not only is space in mobile games, sci-fi and space is really expensive to market for some reason.
Really?
Like kids or people on the App Store just don't like space. I don't know. That's probably not what it is, but it's very expensive to market. So anyways, if we were to make a space console game, right, that would be a huge bet and a very risky bet. And right now it's like Pickcrafter, after Pickcrafter, Doggo was kind of a risky bet. It was an arcade game, totally different from Pickcrafter.
Right.
And then Coffee Craze, we kind of like reeled that back in, made it a little bit less risky bet. It's an idle game. Idle games are, they have high metrics. They have a great value because everybody, wants to play it. And, the gameplay is very simple.
Uh-huh.
And coffee, everybody loves coffee, right? Well, a lot of people love it, right? It's huge.
Got you.
So once again, now our audience is a lot bigger, right?
You're just trying to be very strategic about which uncharted territory for your company you want to take it into.
Yeah. Because in the end, we need to, maintain profitability, and Pickcrafter has been, helping us with that. But sometimes the Google Play algorithm, like, the things that you don't see. Why was my app ranked number 3 on this keyword? Oh, now on this keyword, I'm number 2, right? You just don't know what goes on behind the scenes.
Of course, because you're giving the gatekeepers the power there.
And sometimes Google changes their algorithm, or they're like, hey, guys, we're doing a new algorithm refresh. They don't tell us why or what changed. But then all of a sudden, our game might increase in downloads or it might decrease.
Right.
So it's
how do you remedy that because you don't know what they changed?
Exactly. It's all like,
Yeah.
Okay.
I think this is a problem where a lot of people on YouTube are doing it too. Same thing. I'm kind of like of the boat, right? I'm not playing with their games. I'm just doing my own thing at this time, and we'll see where once I have enough content and I feel like, okay, I think this is actually going somewhere, we'll spend some more energy and time on trying to figure out what these algorithms are doing, because that's not the end game of this. The content lives on beyond you and me,
And sometimes there's old videos that just explode.
Yeah.
It's all like, oh, that video you made 10 years ago?
Like imagine if in 10 years your business takes off completely, and this is the first podcast that exists.
There you go.
From the company's co-founder to talk about the business.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
This would be amazing. I could see this flying through LinkedIn and all over the place. Do you know what I mean? So you never know.
Check out this hidden podcast.
Yeah, from back in the day.
Yeah. Man, they still had Pickcrafter back then.
Yeah, well, you never know.
This was before Pickcrafter 2.
That's really cool. So would you say the company is profitable at this time now?
Yes. And most of that is from Pickcrafter. And
12 million downloads.
Yep.
Fuck.
Yeah, and we're still very fortunate, and but we still need to make like, hey, we need to diversify.
Right.
So in the next games, in these games, console games are more risky than mobile games because mobile games just have more people playing.
And is it also the risk that Pickcrafter, because you guys are still developing it, right? As far as I can tell, you still adding more to it or no?
So that's another thing. So we are, but it's like, how much do you?
I was gonna say because you
right?
got to be careful because you don't want to turn off the users that already like what's there
Yep.
by adding in something else.
Yep. But also, it's like, hey,
Not getting them bored.
Yep. But if we take the whole company and we spend 6 months of the company's time working on new updates for Pitcrafter, and let's say Pitcrafter doesn't incrementally, gain in revenue, let's say it just, stays profitable or stays this baseline,
Yeah.
well, then we could have just did 6 weeks instead of 6 months.
Yeah.
And so that's like, okay, how much is too much? How much is too little? Right. And you need to like listen to the user's feedback. Like you said, they might get mad at a feature, but and right now we're doing great things. The updates are short. They don't require that many.
What are your
developers.
release cycles? Every few weeks or every month?
At least one release every 2 weeks, but it doesn't have to be a feature update.
Right.
So Google Play, part of the algorithm, if you haven't updated your app, I think the max is 4 weeks. If you haven't updated it in 4 weeks, it becomes stale, and the algorithm like pushes it further down.
So you almost have to like get a change.
There's a lot of people that say like, oh, hey, this is a bug fix update, and nothing was changed at all.
I've been seeing those because that makes a lot of sense. So people are. This is the fun thing we were talking about this when we met is like people operate within these laws, but then we set up laws without understanding the full recourse of why those laws are there. An example that I gave was the Titanic when it sank. Had only 16 lifeboats because that was the legal limit that you had to have to operate a ship, because ships were mostly used for ferrying people around, but Titanic was one of the revolutionary ships, was going to do its maiden voyage to transport people across continents, and they didn't want to put a lot of boats on there, one, because they didn't want to scare people to think that the boat was unsafe or the ship was unsafe, and then the lifeboats that they put on there, they were concerned with, like the cost and all these things that would go on. But they knew that the legal limit was just to have 16. So they went with that when the people they had were 2-3x the amount of people that they would have needed boats for.
Yep.
And no surprises. People know the story. The boat sank and a lot of people died. So point being that we operate within the law, not recognizing what the law is trying to hold up, And this is interesting where like with rules, these arbitrary rules of algorithms and stuff, it's like, and you see this all the time with social media, because the developers are trying to do something and people are figuring out ways of gaming it because that's human nature. We're going to find a way to game it. And the way that they're trying to counter it is with these sort of tactics, but people catch on. So they got to keep operating. It's kind of silly, but it is what I guess keeps this whole thing spinning.
Yep. And like for us, it's like, okay, we're a really small indie team, right? There's a lot of developers on the mobile app store that has like hundreds or and they spend millions of dollars on ads, right? We don't have that much money, right? So we're just there hustling. We're like, all right, this is how the algorithm works from our knowledge, from our experience, right? And it's like, great, let's go ahead and do this, do that, and it's just part of that hustle of like.
So you just had a week-long hackathon.
Yes.
Can you describe anything from that? What came out of that? What was the experience like? What kind of things come up? And what do you think? Where's your head after that?
Yeah, definitely. So we made this more of like a yearly tradition thing. In the end, it would be nice to bring the whole entire team, but right now it was 3 of us, old coders. And the whole goal is to say like, hey, let's just go ahead and spend the whole week creating something brand new, fresh. And there's this type of game out there that we really enjoy. It's called, the genre of the game is called a roguelike.
Okay.
And the way that this game...
What does that mean?
So...
a roguelike?
Yeah, rogue and then like.
Roguelike.
Yeah,
Okay.
and they also have kind of a spin-off ones of this genre called rogue light, Lite. Very similar.
A lot of niches.
Yep. But the whole like the way that this game works is very interesting because it's has to do with randomness.
Okay.
So for example, let's say you start on level 1 and let's say you have little imagine you're playing Super Mario, right? And you see a Goomba and you defeat this Goomba and you go into the pipe. Great. The next level is this item room.
Yeah.
3 random items show up. Let's say one of them is increase your jump height. The next one is increase your movement speed. And the next one is do more damage against Goombas. And let's say these items are random every single time you start the game. So you're like, oh, I really like jump. I want a better jump height. And let's say the next level is a little too hard and you die instantly.
Yes.
You go
Because
ahead
of that
and
mod.
yeah. And now you lose all your items. So you start off fresh, and then you defeat that one Goomba, go into the item room, and now the items are random again. Now the first item is get an extra jump. So now you can double jump. And then another one is like now you have blue fireballs. Maybe they do extra damage. So there's all these random permutations, and that's what makes this type of gameplay fun.
Yeah.
Because every single time you play it, it's going to be unique. It's going to be different.
Yeah.
You're like, whoa, you know. And people play these games because they want to try to see how powerful they get. They're like, whoa, I got lucky.
Yeah. What are the permutations they could play with? Yeah, fair enough.
And sometimes you get unlucky. Sometimes you're like, you know, I got these bad rolls and it doesn't feel that good. Let me just restart.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Now check out this run. This run was so lucky. Oh my God, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was the type of genre that we were looking for this game. And we created this game, and we just call it Rogue Tower, just as a code name. But it was like a 3-player type of game. It was like a 2D type of game of kind of like very similar to Super Mario, right?
Right.
And we had 3 players, and it was co-op. So you had like we built all these enemies that showed up in the screen, and I could show you this. Send it to you later too.
Sure. Yeah.
But and you had like a bow and arrow, so you can kind of like aim for the flying enemies, and then you also had like a little sword slash thing, and the enemies would come in waves, and once you complete all the waves, you go into a portal that opens up at the end of the level, and that would go take you to the item room.
Wow.
And then the item room would have, you know, 3
Dang, how many
different-
hours a day were you guys working on this hackathon, man?
Oh, it was a lot. It was about
12-hour days or something?
a little bit longer than that. Like we would wake up at like 9, around 9, and then
Just code all day.
until like we had a cutoff at like 1 a.m. Because the last hackathons we had, we had a couple morning people and a couple night owls, so like we didn't keep the sleep schedules, and we should have.
Yeah, yeah.
But that kind of resulted somebody staying up for like, or somebody waking up 4 hours before somebody else woke up. So that was a lack of planning.
Yeah.
But this hack week, we're like, all right, here's the schedules. These are all the food places we're going to eat at. This is, you know, our exercise routine, you know, because we need to be active.
Balance.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. You can't just, you know.
Can't just be sitting. You know what, dude? That's props to you guys. And props to every coder out there who is trying to make this cyber world a better place, because I started out as a programmer, and I do not have the patience, nor do I want to sit there and code, because I did it for a few years, you know, 3-4 years or 2-3 years roughly after, you know, in enterprise. And then, you know, I did like a bunch of projects in school and things like that. But yeah, man, it's just a whole different game. Like, you really have to understand the tools that are available to you, what you can do. It's like a game. Coding is like a game, wouldn't you say? It's like you know what things are available to you, what like mods you have, what things you have, and like what packages you could use, what libraries are out there, what does what. And then a lot of it's like you just jump in and you are researching, trying to figure out what it is to do. Yeah,
it's like the goal is for you to do this implemented or have this implemented in the game.
Yeah.
How are you going to do that?
Right.
And then once you do it, feel good.
Yeah.
Dopamine hit, right?
Right. So you guys are like playing the game, developing the game.
Yep.
While most of the other people are just enjoying the game that you guys have put out.
Yeah. So, but right now it's like, you know, at the end of these hackathons, we did one 2 years ago in Seattle.
Yeah.
And we brought, there's 4 of us that came up for that. And we did a new game every single day.
Wow.
And it was intense.
That is pretty intense.
But we were able to, and a lot of these ideas, they're good exercises.
Right.
But we kind of just like think of it like, hey, you know, this is something that we might work in the future.
Right.
It doesn't make sense right now because they're console PC game.
Right.
But we might be able to do in the future. Right.
Right. So you're seeing that you might want to in the future tap outside of the mobile gaming to go into consoles.
Yeah,
potentially.
That would be really cool. That is a big risky bet. Like
right.
One of our we know of a developer, and they kind of did the same thing too, where they made a really great mobile hit, and then all of a sudden they released on they released a PC game, a console game,
Right.
and it kind of reminds us of how Paycrafter is, where they got this big hit and they're like, great, let's go ahead and release a PC game, and they spent like years on making this PC game, and then it didn't do well. They made a blog post saying like, hey, we messed up, right? We thought this game was going to be a hit, and it didn't do so well. So I think, it would be nice to do that, right? Because couch co-ops are fun, right? You're just sitting in the couch with your friends, and you just...
Have you noticed when you're developing video games, are there like certain sort of like gameplay events that you can then replicate into other games that are just like retrofitting? So you can say like, okay, you developed like this one aspect of this game that is can be abstracted out and then reutilized in other parts of different games.
So we do that for our our games. We've gotten better at that too, where it's like, hey, in Coffee Craze, it makes sense to do like a daily reward, right? And so we code up this great system, and we're like, oh, we want this to be in Super Doggo game. And we've gotten better at that, but in order for that to get into Paycrafter's code base was made 4 years ago.
Right. You'd have to go and tear that all up.
Exactly. And it's like, I mean, and too, but coding is like learning a new language, right? Or like, let's say you're learning how to write a language.
Yeah.
And like, you look back 4 years ago and you're like, what the heck
What
did
the
I
heck?
write?
Why
Like,
did I do it that way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gross. What the?
Yeah.
Jeez, this is embarrassing. Or looking at your Facebook kind of.
Your old Facebook. Yeah.
5 years ago, it's like, oh my God, delete profile.
That's very true.
It's like, what the heck? What was I thinking? Oh my God, I was such a narcissist.
So have you come across at any point in the few years, roughly 4 or 5 years now, you guys have been in business, have there been any moments that were truly like, wow, we're not going to make it? Like, this is not working out?
I think a lot of our decisions, especially with like before we hired on, we see that as a risky decision, something that's worth it. But in reality, it's actually on the far conservative side of risky. It's not like what would be extremely risky and probably would be a failure is that if we hired 15 people tomorrow, right? We would go through our bankroll really quick, and it doesn't make sense, right?
Right.
There's a lot of companies that have grown too fast and then
too quick.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so for us, a lot of our decisions have been, on the conservative side of risky. And there has been cases where it's like, oh, Google algorithm is doing something, but we've always managed to recover back there.
So you haven't had any like real dangerous points yet?
There's been a couple of times where I think like sometimes, so with the game being similar to Minecraft inspired, when we first released the game, and there's V1s out there that you can tell that we were using the Minecraft assets back then. And, we reached out to Mojang, to get their permission. And, they kind of gave us the brand guidelines saying like, hey, kind of like operate in good faith type of thing. And then like they came back and said like, hey, you're using our artwork. You need to take this down. Because we were very new to the game. We didn't know better. And then they were like very friendly because, they reached out. They're like, hey, you guys are probably not here for malicious intent, but please change your artwork assets.
Yeah.
So we went out there, and Google was about to take us down. So we were like,
because of like copyright?
Yeah.
Wow.
But we worked with them, and we got lucky with that too, because a lot of other companies, they could just be like, hey, we're suing you, right?
Yeah.
And they were very like nice, and we had that open conversation with them. Like, hey, we went ahead, hired another artist, or contracted out another artist like with the texture pack, and we were able to replace them.
Yeah.
And that's why it kind of like looks a little bit different. But I mean, it's still a totally different game from Minecraft. But at that point, we're all like, oh crap, let's go. We're not gonna see this fail. We're gonna do whatever it takes, right? This is
Have you always been like this? Have you always had that sort of a mindset, like growing up? You know, like I'm curious, how did you develop into having that sort of grit and having that level of certainty in your abilities that, yes, it doesn't matter, we're going to charge through this, you know?
I never really thought of that. Like, now that you're pointing it out, I'm thinking like, how did I think for me, like I like if I have a goal set, like I'm gonna do whatever it takes, and I think what that kind of stems from is that how I grew up. Like my parents, my mom was Mexican, and my dad, my mom is Mexican, and my dad is I think his parents were born in Kansas. Yeah.
Okay.
And so the way that they had strict rules, like
Right.
very strict rules. Like I couldn't go out like after 9 p.m. on a college night or
Right.
something like that.
Or school night, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of like contentious points, right, where I just wanted to do my own thing.
Yeah.
And some of the things that they would like say no to me about, I didn't really find a logical reason why.
It's just authoritarian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was all like there's this one where like I wanted to get a ping pong table, and my mom was like, no. I was like, well, I'm willing to like put in the money. I'm willing to do chores. I'm willing, and to me, I was like, this is logical. I'm actually showing my value to them. I really want this ping pong table.
Yeah. I've had similar engagements.
And they kept saying like, no. And to me, I just wasn't putting it together. I was like, why? Like, doesn't make sense. And they're like, it's our house, our rules.
Yeah. It's the cop out, man.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm just all like, oh my goodness. And I think from like these interactions, like for me, I was able to like, I don't know. I think something about that, like being just and being like, I'll show, like
I'll show them.
Yeah, exactly.
By just working on it.
Yeah, this is my goal now. I will do whatever it takes to get this ping pong table.
Yeah.
But what was crushing, I was all like, oh, there's nothing I can do. Holy crap.
Dude, what you just said was exactly my mentality. So I was always into music. So my parents always, try to discipline me. My mom always was a little bit more, would be encouraging of all the side things I would do. But like I never did that well in school by myself because I didn't like studying. I was very much like a creative kid, artistic in a lot of ways, wants to play and, did music a lot. So, by the time, it's time to go to college, it's like didn't have the best grades, didn't get into any university. So started at, community college. So it's very difficult for my parents to see like, okay, is he going to make it or not?
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's when, my family's health started to go down and my dad's health specifically. And I think I started, a large part of that was I wanted to also, throughout high school, like I was the small kid, I got bullied for it and whatever. And I wanted to kind of, feel better about myself. So like working out became a really big thing. But then like being the same way, like with music, I was a decently good musician, even though I never had like a lot of formal lessons. I always could pick it up. If I just like worked on it. So I somehow like intrinsically was figuring out that if you just keep working on stuff, it starts to make more and more sense, and if you just keep doing it repetitively over and over again, you're going to start to see patterns and you're going to start to see places where you can optimize. And when I started, bodybuilding in college, like I think there was a hesitancy when my parents was, well, he's not going to finish his degree and he's just going to be in the gym all the time because, bodybuilding does require a lot of that. It's a lot of discipline.
Yeah.
But my attitude was, you know what? I'll not only show them, I'll show anybody that doubts me what I can do.
Yeah.
And, I would say if it wasn't for bodybuilding, I probably wouldn't have gotten my degree either because that brought structure to my life. It became discipline. It became like, okay, you got this work to do the same way that you're figuring out how to do all these other things in your life. This is another part of the shit that you got to do.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to eat the stuff I was eating. I didn't want to do the cardio. I didn't want to do some of these
Super
things.
healthy, though.
There's a lot of things you got to do, right? So this understanding of you, there's things that you got to do, which you're not going to like, but they're part of the process.
Yeah.
And I think a large part of now in life, even today, is sort of finding the balance, but also justifying to yourself, like, yeah, there's there's a power to your sacrifice. There's a power that you can really reveal only by doing it in sacrifice. Like you can't go for the instant gratification of it.
Yeah.
There have to be actions that give you instant gratification too. Otherwise it's really difficult because that's like biological in us. You know, we're designed for that.
Yeah.
You know, but at the same time, it's phenomenal that we've discovered this concept of sacrificing. I mean, if you follow the evolutionary theories, we come from like these, you know, primates and these monkeys or whatever. How did they, what point in their existence figure out? Because, you know, you look at the animal kingdom, a lot of it's impulsive behavior. It's immediate.
Yeah.
How did they figure out the power of sacrifice?
Mm-hmm.
You know, when did they realize that if they held off and worked at something and didn't know the true outcome, but hoped that with these efforts, something more fruitful will reveal itself? I mean, that concept is just phenomenal.
It's kind of like, I think the instincts of survivability, right? Like we have that too, right? If things are not looking so hot, right? And we need to like, hey, I'm in college and I can't afford the rent. I need to do whatever it takes.
Yes.
Right. And it kind of triggers of like, okay, you know, and that moment it sucks, but it's like, I feel like that also kind of taps into that instinct.
Yes.
Right. And I feel like for our company, another thing that kind of is tapped into is like the tribalism, right? Our instinct of forming a tribe, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like, hey, you know, our tribe is our company, and I'm going to do whatever it takes. You know, the whole team has been hustling, and I'm willing, like, we're going to do whatever it takes to succeed, right? I don't want us to, you know, to ever split up because, like, we have so much talent, you know, and I know we can achieve all of our goals.
Yeah.
But I feel like that also taps into the tribalism thing of, like, hey, you know, and that happens everywhere, right? The tribalism thing, right? Sports games, right?
Yes, we've got to band together to tackle this chaos.
Yep.
Because you are the thing that's going to bring order to the chaos.
Mm.
You know, this is one of the famous things that Jordan Peterson talks about. It's like chaos exists in this world, but to bring order, you have to voluntarily go and tackle that chaos and bring order into it.
Yeah.
You know, like confront the dragon of chaos. And you have to show it that you are bigger than it, and it becomes smaller.
Yeah.
You know, as you confront it. So it's like this constant battle that we have to fight every single day. You know, from the moment like you started with this conversation, getting up, making your bed is the first battle you win.
I lost that battle today.
I did too. I woke up late today. I kind of wanted to just be lazy, but I'm so glad that we got to do this though.
Yeah.
Dude. We're running up on 2 hours of this. This has felt like it was a breeze. I didn't even think it was 2 hours, which is crazy. But I do want to say a few things before we wrap up. But I do want to, you know, kind of, is there anything that in this conversation that you think we've left out that you find from your adventures in the last 5 years could be valuable to somebody to hear?
I think it's like, I view life as like humanity as a basketball game.
Yeah.
So it's your choice. You could be on the court. You could be a starter. You could be in the bench, or you could just be out back in the outside of it getting drunk.
Yeah.
Where is your contributions?
Where do you want to be?
Yeah. And to me, I'm all like, coach, put me in, man. But
Dude.
Because at the same time, like, life is so short, right? And we're all the same. We're all humans, right? We're all on this rock together.
Yeah, that's right.
And I feel like my thoughts are like, well, with this short amount of time, I want to make like the biggest dent. Sure, it's not going to be like a crazy breaking of the metal, like, but I am willing to like do whatever it takes, you know, make other people's lives better, inspire them, do whatever it takes for this dent to happen. If you look at Elon Musk, right, he's like the team captain right now, right? But it's just that type of mentality of like, okay, you know.
Confront.
Yeah.
Let's go get it.
Hell yeah. Let's get this bread.
I like that, man. That's so good because fundamentally, I've had this revelation myself and it's been talked about by many great philosophers about, you know, we're here. We got here without our choice. in some ways. We're born into this world, and we know we're gonna die, and everything else in the middle is the time we have to spend here.
Yeah.
Love is really the common thread. Love as an act, not just, saying I love you, but as a act of service and showing that to you, to your community, to your family, to everybody, becomes like this way of countering the suffering of why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing here? What am I doing?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like these are real questions that like our minds have to be programmed to do in a matter of every single hour, every single day, every single week, every month, year, and so on, because this is the game that we're playing.
Yeah.
Like talking about games, this is the game we're playing, whether we want to or not.
Yeah, and to add on that, it's like regarding like to tell anybody out there, everybody's different, and some people might not want to be part of the basketball game.
Right.
People are okay just chilling in the stands, and to each their own, right?
Sure.
And it's just more of like for the individuals that want to go out there and want to do things like that. Then don't let anything stop you, right?
Yes.
But I don't want to come off and say like, hey, everybody needs to be operating like this, because we're all different, right?
Yes.
And everybody has their own lives. We can't control it.
Well, perhaps we could say that not everybody needs to operate in the level of striving to become a basketball, like, or in the analogy of the game, to become the player that's the star.
Yeah.
But you should be striving to do things that are good for you, the people you're responsible for, and the community that you're a part of at the very least. Otherwise, you are no longer a productive member of society.
Totally agree.
Right? So it's
100%.
like, you don't have to strive to be the world's best or anything, but shit, if you're going to do it, why not put yourself and see where you can take yourself?
Yeah.
And I think agree with the closing of it would be really that there's a equal balance that you have to spend sometimes striving and then bringing yourself back and then appreciating what you have in life.
Yeah.
And I'm going to preach that to everybody that, comes in on this mic and hangs out with me, is that like, yeah, keep doing what you're doing, man, but don't forget to live in the day, in the moment that you have. Like, design that day to be everything it could be, because nobody really gets, very few people get the notice, but we don't know when this game ends.
Yeah. And this game could end tomorrow.
It could end right now.
Yeah. That's true. That's, whoa.
But hey, I do that kind of like my whole message and everything that I'm doing is about self-awareness and kind of giving people the ability to wake up from their loop that they're in of existence, of their thoughts, of recognizing that that's not all there is to life.
Yeah.
And, a large part of that is, I want to do self-awareness retreats here in San Diego. So if you and your team ever want to come out, I'd be happy to do like a business related event, and anybody watching this, for the common folk, this is also something you should consider. You can email us at blossommediastudio@gmail.com. If you're interested for this. But we want people to become more and more self-aware, man. Like, stress and anxiety are a real problem. They're topics we should discuss openly. They're no longer taboo subjects of mental health disorders and things like that.
Yeah.
More people are suffering than not. More antidepressants than multivitamins is what I like to say.
Yeah.
Is like the philosophy that we're operating from nowadays. And there's certainly, each of us can do our part to be more compassionate and empathetic towards other people, because they're suffering and struggling just like we are. And we have to realize, like you said, the game is together. You have to cooperate together, whether you're playing video games or whether you're in real life. And the better you get at that, and the better you can figure out who your tribe is that you can kind of operate at an optimal level from, you're just going to go to the next level.
Yeah. Totally
Dude,
agree.
Kevin.
100%.
Anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here?
I think it's been great.
Dude,
This could go on for 4 hours.
this could go on for fucking ever. But listen, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, seriously, for agreeing to do this and being here and coming from Texas to be here and be a part of this, man. I really, really appreciate it. I can't wait to see the new game. I'm definitely going to download the other two. You guys, if you want to find them, just go to the website, Fiveamp.com. You can find him on the Google and the Apple Play Store.
Yep.
Or the Apple Store and the Google Play Store. And more and more to come, man.
Yep.
More and more to come. So I
gotta
hope you
do
keep
this
coming
again.
back.
Yep,
Hell
yep.
yeah. Take care, everybody. Hope you have a great weekend.